The Board of Custer County Commissioners for the County of Custer will come to order. Let the record show that it is 9:00 a.m. on February the 28th. Welcome. Mr. Coons, may I ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir?
Perfect.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Did you hear that? Pardon? Yeah. Welcome and good morning, everybody. Nice to have you here. I just want to say as part of the welcome, I hope that these computers are not a distraction or a personal affront to you people in the audience. I have sat in that side of this deal and thought, what's so important about that computer screen? Why don't they just close it and pay attention? We do try to minimize paper. We haven't gotten there 100% yet, but some of the documents we're going to be talking about today are on our computers, or at least on mine. We each have a opportunity. Thank you, sir. We each have the opportunity to approach that however we want. So I just want you to know, as a commissioner, I have some stuff on my laptop and some and some stuff on hard copy. So maybe I didn't even need to say that, but I felt like I needed to. Madam Secretary to the Board, would you conduct the roll call, please?
Would.
Thank
Commissioner Flower,
Present.
Commissioner Kanda,
Here.
Commissioner Prince,
Here.
Attorney Clint Smith,
Present.
and Clerk to the Board Kelly Camper present.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Gentlemen, any amendments to the agenda?
I do.
Okay, sir.
I'd like to add under old business the Colorado Opportunity Zone that we discussed last meeting.
Okay. Colorado, oops, sorry.
Opportunity
Yeah.
Zone.
Okay. All right. Ms. Camper, you good?
Yep.
Anything else, sir?
That's it.
Mr. Candon?
One thing I'd like to mention is on the agenda, last meeting we decided we'd put a sentence in there so you all, public, would understand what we're going to talk about. So you can come to the right meeting. Sometimes you get disappointed and you sit the whole meeting and nothing was discussed. So we want to make sure that we get to do a better job of communicating what we're going to talk about and if there's going to be any decisions made, so you're here for them.
Okay. Do you want to add that as an agenda item and vote on that, or
Didn't
what's
we
your
do that
pleasure?
already?
I thought we did.
We did.
Yes.
It's just a matter of reminding our process to start
Okay.
including that for you,
Okay.
that's all. So I didn't mean that it was an agenda item
Okay.
to change.
All right.
It was just an agenda item that we did change, but we'll...
Okay. Anything else that you
No.
wanted to add on to the agenda? I guess I would ask our counselor this morning, would it be appropriate to wait to add an agenda item on about looking at the name change for the airport advisory board until we meet with them? Should we put that on as agenda item and deal with it? What would be your recommendation there?
I think it would be better to have the,
Conversation with them first?
them
Okay,
first, yeah.
Okay.
I'll do that when I meet with them.
Yeah, we will, then I will just add that to a subsequent
whenever
agenda
they're
item.
scheduled to be back
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, and maybe, Mr. Cantor, you're the point of contact for the airport advisory board. Would you want to have a discussion with them
Yeah, I'll
at
talk
one of
with
their regular meetings?
Or before, depending on when we want to hit this.
Right, okay. Yeah, I don't know
No
when your
hurries.
next meeting's scheduled, but, so I will not put that on the agenda then today, thank you.
From the committee.
Yeah, you can bring that chair on in, sir, if you'd like. We're all
Or stay out there where the air is cool.
okay. Anything else then for the agenda? I don't believe I have anything else. Then the next item of business would be the approval of the February 6th and 7th minutes from the BOCC meeting.
We all got copies.
Yes, we did.
Gone
I
through
think, at least I did.
I did.
Okay.
I reviewed them. I
Okay.
thought they were very well done. I
you.
didn't see any changes, and I'll move that we approve both the February 6th and February 7th minutes to the Board of
I'll
Thank you,
second
sir. It's been moved and seconded to approve the February 6th, February 7th minutes of the Board of County Commissioner meeting. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to commend Kelly one more time. I do it often, but I'd like to do it again for a job well done on those minutes. Thank you.
Why don't you screw up intentionally? So.
Right.
Let's see what he says. Let's see what he says.
Let me
See if
know
he's
when you
really
See if it's a
paying
broken
attention.
record.
Let me know when you do so I can call him on that. Yeah. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. The minutes for February 6th and 7th have been approved. At this time, we would like to ask the audience to introduce themselves. We'll start over here, please.
Jackie Bubis, what's
Kelly Smith.
Candace McDaniel?
Tracy Ballard Tribune.
Okay, right behind you, Miss Sarah.
Sarah Shields?
George Coons.
Marilyn Stodola.
Barbara Hines.
Jim Hines.
Dorothy Vogel?
Charles Vogel.
And up here in the front, sir.
Charlie Ellison.
Betsy Woodbury?
Newell Woodbury.
Beth Cartwright?
Bill Baker.
Eric Price.
Shannon North. Linda Washington.
Maddie Burritt?
Gary Taylor.
Mike Shields.
Louis,
Louis DeVang.
Scott Carlin.
anybody else I can't get an eye on out there? Okay. Yeah, we do have a sign-up sheet if you would like. You're welcome to sign that. Thank you all. Thanks for being here. Obviously, you're here because you're interested in the goings-on of the county, and we appreciate that. It would be boring to sit here and run a county commissioner meeting with 3 of us or 4 or 5 of us, and that's it. So people often say, well, I wish people would get involved and care about what's going on in the county, and obviously you do, or you wouldn't be sitting here this morning. So thank you. We appreciate that. We will try to honor your time today and keep things moving on in a timely manner. At this time, commissioner items. Let's start with Mr. Kanda today, by golly.
Okay.
I'm right-handed, so I always go this direction. Yes, sir.
Of course, the last meeting was only a few days ago, but since then a lot of things have happened. Primarily the broadband issue. A lot of that going on. I had a separate meeting, as we all did, with the Custer County Economic Development Corp. Charles was good enough to meet with us all, answer all the questions he thought, and then he came to a workshop and answered more. So we had that as well. And then we also have had a judicial long-term committee meeting directed by underneath Shannon, our sheriff, Shannon Byerly. That was yesterday, and as you all are aware, we're trying to figure out how to utilize the space we have here in the courthouse better and look toward the future of what kind of a center, new jail system, judicial system that we might get down the road. So we got some good volunteers from the county, a lot of citizens, and everybody's excited about looking forward to that. And now that brings us to this meeting. I did some due diligence, as a matter of fact, for the broadband. Continued till late into the night last night, and I'll report on that as we start discussing that later on.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, sir? Nope. Okay. Mr. Prince?
I also attended the broadband workshop, of course, in the facilities committee yesterday. And when I met that we did yesterday, I had a meeting on the opportunity zone, which I briefly reported on in my prior meeting, and I've asked for it to be on the new agenda. So I'll talk to you when we get to older business, and I'll explain what it is, how it works, and what I'd like to get approval from you folks if we can.
Good, thank you. I would guess, obviously, the 3 of us know the meetings we've attended, the workshop with the Economic Development Corporation on the 26th, and then I also went to the February meeting on the evening of the 26th at the Silver Cliff Town Hall, met with that board, as I will intend to continue to do. And then, obviously, we had our county needs assessment meeting that Bill alluded to yesterday, and I wanted to publicly thank the courts for arranging for that. It was a working lunch meeting, so they arranged and provided lunch for that group. I thought that was very nice and kept us moving forward. Ended up being a 3-hour meeting, but that's what we had.
Why they needed to bring
budgeted.
lunch.
So that's right. So, as Bill said, Shannon is the chairman of that committee. Shannon Byerly, our sheriff. We asked him to serve in that capacity, and he agreed. So we have, as commissioners, agreed to attend that meeting. Obviously, we will not be making decisions during those committee meetings. I think we're there as a resource and an information gathering effort on our part. So, other than that, because we just had our report on the 23rd, that's all I have to report as well, gentlemen. So, and I did send you. Did you get a copy of that? Okay, thank you. Anything else before we move on? Good. All right. Attorney items.
At the meeting last week in Wetmore, a question came up about the name of the Airport Advisory Board, so I did a little research on that issue and sent you a memo. That's what was discussed briefly, and that's something we'll talk about with the Airport Advisory Board when they're present for a regular public meeting. I also, when I was working on that, I was going through the other boards that the county has. We have a weed advisory board, and we still have not appointed that, according to
That's
the
correct.
check with Brenda. So
That's correct.
I think that's something we really need to get
Yes.
going on. And that is an advisory board by statute. That's
Not just a weed board, they're gonna give us advice on them.
and it said, the county commissioners shall appoint a weed advisory board, so we need to get that done. Also, I just wanted to say, I had Kelly help me out because she got some old resolutions for me so I could look at things. And Kelly, you got me the resolution 12-11, which dissolved the Custer County Airport Authority Board. There should be one right after that that created the Airport Advisory Board. Can you take a look and see if there's
I didn't see one.
nothing in
That
it?
was the only thing I saw regarding that.
Well, if we haven't ever done that by resolution, we probably should have that taken care of.
Definitely.
I'll check with Alan Butler, because he was involved in that decision,
Right.
so I'm sure he's got a record somewhere. We'll see if we can't find it.
That's all I had to report on today.
Okay. And as a follow-up, if I may, sir, and I appreciated your memo. It kind of did solidify what we thought about the difference between committees and boards. And I get it that the weed advisory board language comes from statutes.
Correct.
I still think it's a misnomer, but that's neither here nor there. I guess it does stand in the face of my question of
You're saying that.
if it's advisory, in my opinion, then I think it should be a committee. If it's a board, then it's not necessarily advisory. Obviously, state statutes talk a different language than that, but that's, I guess, would be what I would ask Bill to discuss with the airport board. If council recommends that based on the definitions, should that name be the airport board or should it be airport advisory committee? I struggle with calling something an advisory board. I think it's either advisory committee or it's a board. That's the whole point. And I think we had that discussion the other day. So is that reasonable?
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Yeah. Please say that a little louder because.
You embarrassed me for the group.
Yeah. You won't, because I will if you don't. We are impressed with Counselor's necktie today. Very nice, sir.
Not only that, it matches his shirt.
Into dressing up a little
Well,
You didn't get the brown memo today.
oh, it is very nice. In all sincerity, sir, you look well. Anything else, sir?
bit. No, that's it.
Administrative assistant, any items?
The only thing that I wanted to address was Commissioner Canda's request to have the sentence on the agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
If you all could provide me
Yeah.
with what you would specifically like it to say.
Right, and that's anybody that wants to have an item on here. Could be anybody out there. Just you got to give a little synopsis enough so that we can get a clue what you're going to talk about, so people can
exactly.
attend.
That's it.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks.
ma'am. Go ahead, sir.
So needs to be very, very general when you
Right.
do the synopsis, so that we're not locked into a discussion beyond what is specifically stated. If
Or
not,
less
it'd
than.
be an off-agenda item. So I just want to remind everybody, it needs to be very general.
And I would guess that it would be fair to say in the future, moving forward, if we do not have an explanation statement, it's because one either wasn't provided for us or the agenda item itself is pretty self-explanatory.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that can be the case.
okay, good. We all right, sir? You may or may not know this. We are live streaming our BOCC meetings. The camera is mounted on that pedestal right there by Mrs. Shields. And we're also working on the audio portion, and our IT gentleman, that's what we're working on. He's monitoring this meeting in his office. And so if we have issues with the audio, he's going to try to come in and make some minor tweaks. So that's what's going on with that.
Sometimes you gotta love technology,
That's right.
or not.
Anything else?
Based on the last hearing, I really think next budget, we do need a makeup artist, part of the county.
Okay.
For some of us.
I was going to say thank you. I don't feel that way.
They don't. I'm sorry.
Of course, I forgot I put a new blade in my razor and nicked myself shaving this morning, so I could have used one today. We'll move on to old business. Personnel policy. Ms. Camper, the floor is yours.
So, you guys requested that we get a group together and go over the personnel policy again. We did that. We have made very few changes, just little minor tweaks. I have sent you a copy of the new personnel policy with the changes and a copy of the page that
Show the
gives
changes.
you,
Yep.
shows all the changes, so you don't have to
Right.
figure that out, what we changed.
Okay.
And everybody, the group that met was all of the department heads and all the elected officials. So I feel like everybody had a good say and it was a good conversation and
I'm gonna beat Jay to this one. I'm
Okay.
gonna commend you for your work in getting all those diverse people with their separate opinions together to come together, because that was important. As you may recall, you know, several months ago, it was a tough deal because they were, you know, trying to work what's common between them, etc. So, good job.
thank you.
And as long as you two continue to do that, I'll probably take the stance of I'm not complimenting anybody. on
That's right.
anything.
You don't have to. You just get the hammer.
I'm not cherry picking these, but for the audience's sake, I just want to mention a couple of these things so that you get a general idea of what she's talking about when we're talking about the changes they made to the personnel policy. Page 6, number 209, in the second paragraph, changed the words question to questioning and removed and search. So a lot of it was that kind of stuff. Obviously, there was a change in there. I just saw it. Now, if I can find it again, of changing the hours of the courthouse back to 8 to 4 instead of 8 to 5. So those were just a couple examples of the kind of changes she's talking about. Page 18, number 504, combined number 212 with number 504 and added bullet points from the previous personnel policy. So I thought most of it was clerical kind of
Yeah.
stuff that we...
Yeah.
Do you believe there were any significant changes in there that...
No, I was actually looking at them again this morning and there weren't any significant changes.
I'll get to you, sir. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, there were a couple. Changing bereavement leave.
Yeah, I was just going to mention...
Yeah,
2 days to a week.
right.
2 to 5, yeah.
And there were some other substantive changes going back to old language. I would request my colleagues to not approve this morning, to hold a workshop so that I can fully understand. I went through every line, I put them together, and I'm somewhat confused. And I would prefer, rather than just approve it right now, I would prefer we had a workshop just so we can get I can get a better handle on what we're changing, what we're deleting, because we just did this a year ago or so, and now we're changing some significant items in it. And we already voted to reduce the courthouse hours back to 4 o'clock, so that's not really an issue. But some of the other most of it was semantics, and I appreciate you fixing language that was done poorly. But the substance stuff, I'd really like to get a better feel on. So that would be my recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Would you care to make a motion to table this item then?
Yeah, I would like to move that we table Resolution 18-03, adopting the 2018 Custer County Comprehensive Personnel Policy until after we have an opportunity to have a workshop to fully understand what the implications of the changes are.
And that was tabled, not postponed, correct?
That's the table, yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. I'll second that motion. Further discussion?
Yeah, I don't have a problem doing that. It's important that we understand that all departments agreed and those changes were real, and we got to get it in. If there's a legal problem with how it's worded, we certainly need to straighten that. I couldn't see any issues.
And this was run by CTSI again. They approved of it. Ran it by Clint. And so when you say workshop, I mean our workshop included all of the
Did not include me.
department
I would like to have been there.
heads. Well,
That
the
you're presenting
commissioners
now.
were invited.
That was the workshop to work on these changes, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I would
do
like-
you want
I would like
all
to
of the
get-
department heads again,
I
or?
don't need all the department heads. I would like you as the chairman of this committee to sit down and just go over the changes. And you can speak, I mean, hearsay evidence is just fine. You could say, well, the treasurer so-and-so felt this, and I'm fine with that. I just want to get a good handle on what specifically we're changing and what the implications are to the county with the changes that you're asking for. The
Okay.
semantics I'm fine with, and it could be a 15-minute thing. Just sit down and help me go through the list of changes that you had so that I feel comfortable with them, if that's okay.
And Commissioner Prince, so that I understand, you moved to table this. You did not include in your motion which meeting or for how long you'd like it to be tabled to. Is that fine? We'll just table it and bring it up?
I would like to just table it and sit,
Okay.
I guess we'll have to do it as a workshop because I think the public certainly should be invited to discuss the changes. And then the meeting immediately after the workshop, we could put it on the agenda for a vote and hopefully have this resolved at that time.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of tabling this motion to a later date, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item has been tabled. Thank you, Ms. Kelly, for your work.
Thank you for doing that.
Appreciate that. Next item under old business is the Colorado Opportunity Zone. Mr. Prince, you have the floor.
Mr. Vogel, if you wouldn't mind joining me, this is first. Good morning. You've been in that hot seat a lot lately.
I think I'll put my name on it.
Now, I'm going to describe the Colorado Opportunity Zone as best as I can. Charles, you really, please correct me when I'm wrong, okay? This is a federal mandate that the feds came up and said, what we're looking to do in all the states is to help improve areas that are depressed within the country. And they didn't want to call the word depressed, they said economic opportunity. So places like, and if I'm wrong with this, like Detroit, where it would be really good if they could build up some new infrastructure and that type of thing. So the feds came out with a program where they are inviting entrepreneurial types to come in to opportunity zones, and I'll explain what an opportunity zone is in just a second, to invest in infrastructure or other commercial endeavors to help improve the areas that are somewhat opportunistic. I don't want to say depressed. The incentive for them to do that is capital gains tax will be postponed for a significant period of time, and may actually be eliminated. The incentive to the companies coming in is that their other long-term capital gains can be postponed and they be eliminated completely. So there is a tax incentive for companies to do that. Colorado has embraced this instantly, and there's identified areas within the state of Colorado that is an opportunity zone. Based on not anything negative with Custer County, to my understanding is all of Custer County is an opportunity zone, not because we're depressed, but because we're so small. So it's an enticement to do something. When I brought this to the board last meeting, or the meeting before, my thought was, I don't really want to just open it up for anybody to come in and bring in, Dairy Queen, and I think I even mentioned the dollar store, another dollar store, that kind of thing. And I was really kind of blew it off, to be real honest with you, because I wasn't real interested in having another large retail footprint in the county. Then I met with Charles, and I learned a lot more, and this is why I'm recommending that we go ahead and put our application in to the economic what is it? OEIPD?
OEIPD?
Yeah. Okay. Because what we're asking for, we can get federal money that flows through the state, and the governor is the one who picks who in the state is awarded this federal money. The things that Charles and I talked about that would really be helpful, and it would be in the proposal, and I have a copy of the proposal for each of you, and it's very, very nebulous, is for infrastructure. Number one thing that we discussed was now this is not a broadband issue we're talking about. This is the Main Street Wi-Fi, which is already up and running. It's been funded, but with additional funds, we could run the Main Street Wi-Fi up to Silver Cliff, into Silver Cliff Park. We can get Hermit Park. Some of the surrounding areas could have Wi-Fi. This is not the broadband issue at all. This is just totally separate. It's just opening it up for anybody who wants to use it. So that was the first incentive that we had. The second one would be things like, or lights at our airport, something that is desperately needed so pilots, when they land at night, can see where the runways are and those kind of things. So when Charles explained to me we can request only infrastructure improvements, I jumped on board right away. The downside is this needs to be approved today, because today is the deadline. It was the first time in history that I know of that the federal government began a program and approved it within 90 days. Is that correct, Charles?
This was last year's tax deal, and if you look at the voluminous reference information, because the first stage is to be accepted as one of these 125 that the state will identify. So, and Custer County as a population, or as a census zone, rated out the highest priority for aid amongst the 4 counties of the COG. So, and looks pretty good compared to the rest of the state. So, and in all truthfulness, that's all we know.
How much money is available?
We don't know.
So we're just coming up with an idea. You don't have to give them an idea
Don't
what the
have to
cost
give them
is,
cost.
any
There's
dollars or anything.
No requirements for right now. It's a matter of who's got basically
good idea.
Good ideas that would make the short list, because everybody can't do it. So
My understanding is the governor will actually pick
125.
Right. Out of how many?
There's 1,249 census tracts in the state. 531 are eligible for this designation, and the state needs to cut that down to 125 before it goes to the feds.
So we've made the 531 cut.
No, this is this submittal today is to compete for that cut.
To compete into the 531.
Well, or the 125 we are one of the eligible
That's why I
tracks.
asked. You know we're eligible. 530. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we're definitely eligible.
So-
We had that list done.
So then we want to be in the 125 for consideration for funding something that they'll ask us to bring some insight to, dollars or whatever.
I would assume that's the next thing. But there was, and it was, it's kind of a dream sheet, and that's.
So how many projects are you? It's hard to read your thing. It's
Well,
all messed up.
I'm running out of ink.
You
Obviously.
are, you sure are. There's some good ideas, but you can't see them.
Well, I wouldn't say it did that on purpose, but there's actually 4 categories of, and it's at best
Page 2.
on the second page. There's business, housing, infrastructure, and other. The housing under that category, funding develop of workforce and affordable housing in an area of escalating prices. And that's in fact the response that, and we know we've got issues with.
I thought you said it was infrastructure only. Yeah,
Well,
that's what I wrote down. Improvement.
There are 4. The general categories are promote economic vitality parts of the state that have not shared in the general prosperity over the past few years. Under that, funding and the development of workforce affordable housing in areas of escalating prices and inventory shortages. Second one, funding new infrastructure to support population and economic growth, and investment in startup businesses who have a potential of rapid increases in scale and ability to export outside. And I couldn't think of one that we've got now that would support
Talked
that.
about that microchip company, did we not?
It's possible, but I don't think they need our help. An upgrading of capabilities of existing underutilized assets through capital improvement investments. And so under the housing, basically just general, yes, we have housing that we need. Infrastructure, as Commissioner, what's his name? Talked about completing the Wi-Fi system for the towns of West Cliff and Silver Cliff, and establish and provide equipment to support a countywide bus transportation system. And then under the last category, it was upgrade the capability of underutilized Silver West Airport by completion of the original design, which if we realize
lights and
it
other-
could, that would be all that. And then that idea that actually the runway that we're using now is the taxiway. So trying to not paint us in a corner, but at least I think those fit the criteria, and we'll submit those upon your approval for consideration to make the 125, and then we'll.
But if I could make a comment, if I may, please. You notice the one that says business is not checked. I personally, and you folks can change this if you like. I personally don't want to invite corporations to come in and start building retail outlets, big business in here because of tax credits. I don't think we really support that because of our population. But I think if we can get this to help our infrastructure, our housing, and that type of thing, I think this would be certainly worthwhile to get some free money that they already taken out of my taxes back to us.
I'm assuming at some point there's going to be a motion made. I can tell you right now, I will not support this, and here's exactly why. I am done having stuff dumped on me at the last minute and then make a decision and have it come back and bite me in the hiney later on. I would have appreciated having this a month ago.
None of us
That
had
was
it a month ago.
Pardon me?
None of us had it a month ago. I called into the meeting from Hawaii, and that was the introduction we had last week.
Okay.
So
You
when's
had it
another
or not.
opportunity? Tom's got a good point. Is there another opportunity to ask to get into the
As far as I
mix?
know, this is a one-time
And I'm
process.
assuming it didn't start today. That's my point. I said a month, that's
I'll
picking
tell
a
you
number
when it
out. I'd like to
started.
have it 2 weeks ago or a week ago. I won't support it today. I haven't even read the thing. It would be ludicrous. Apparently you have a different copy than we do, because I've tried to follow you and I can't
No.
even read half of it.
This
So-
was one of several messages that was distributed out of the COG that introduced the project, so
This was introduced 1 week ago on the 21st of February. The very next meeting, I reported on it. COG told us that this is something that is a rapid fire thing. You can either get in or get out. You can opt out later. My initial thought was probably too soon. However, COG came back. This is something that was just presented. I presented it first opportunity I could. And when we learned more that it could be used just for simple infrastructure, putting our name on the list seemed like a smart idea to us. We can always opt out later if we choose to, but I hate to lose an opportunity even if it is short-fused. And I agree with what you're saying. Short-fused is always a problem, but we're committing to nothing other than putting our name in as one of the potential sites of the 500 plus. We could be potentially named as one of the 125, and then we can determine what to do from that point forward. So it's just, do we want to be part of this or do we not? And if we don't, I get it.
To continue that discussion, because we got to decide whether we want to. You unchecked business, and I understand why box stores may be an issue. But there are businesses. We would like to have jobs up here too. Critical Path just closed their doors. It was a nice business to have up here. It's not a box store. There are kinds of businesses that would be nice and fit our community. We got to figure out what those are. We don't have to accept. We can categorize it, can't we? Or do we just open the door and anybody and their Tom, Dick, and Harry can come in and put up?
And therein lies the issue with checking the business box. Any industry that chooses to come in has that right to do. It's the Sherman Antitrust Act that says we cannot prevent a third dollar store from moving in if we want to. I mean, I understand a lot of people have come to me and said, why are you allowing that? I said, it's federal law. We can't stop it. So if we just say feds are offering any industry the right to get a tax break by coming into an opportunity zone, and we're an opportunity zone, we do not get to pick and choose. You may come in, but you may not as a business.
But there are ways to control it from zoning points of view and other areas to make it acceptable, if that's possible. I can't imagine somebody coming in here because they're of that and build a big hemp plant factory and a bunch of lights.
Hemp is a different animal completely.
But that's my point.
I'm with you. I understand what you're saying. Once we check the box of business, a lot of who is going to come in and avail themselves of this opportunity zone may be totally out of our control. My feeling is I want to be in control of the growth of this county, and by allowing any business that wants to come in through a tax credit. If you want to come in and invest,
we still have that
dollars,
issue, right?
Not with a tax credit.
Right, I understand.
This is an incentive for them to look down the list and go, oh, here's a nice place to live. Let's do this. I don't care if I make money or not, but because I'm going to be able to write off taxes I owe to the government long term. So my feeling was, I mean, I'm fine checking the business box if you want. I would think we'd be remiss if we just
I think we have that
this
issue.
is dumped on me now, and I'm not going to do
But
it.
capitalism and business desire to make money matters, and you're not going to come to Custer County if you're not going to have that ability to make a buck.
Depends on how much taxes you write off. If I open a small business and I can write off $10 million in taxes, I might do that, even though I know I'm going to lose every day from day one on. But
Could
ultimately, the
That's
money
a decision
makes.
they'd have
We
to
don't
make.
know this,
Right.
So I was concerned about that. But infrastructure money, I'm all for. Let me do what I need to. I mean, we're not going to put light rail in Custer County, that's for sure. But maybe we could have a bus that takes people down to Pueblo or Canyon where they can get onto a public service to get into places they need to go. We have the Rotary, it does a wonderful job, but they're not the panacea. Maybe we could have a scheduled, and I hate to use the term transit system in Custer County, but these folks need that. I mean, just because we're small and we're remote doesn't mean we don't have the same needs as everybody else. So I get the point, and
So why is
Mr.
today
Chairman,
the
I
deadline?
really agree with you, what you're saying.
Slow down
This is
because
dumped on me.
the COG's got to review and make their recommendation, and the governor, I think, has got a deadline in March to report to the federal government on what the 125 is. So it's, it is a flow down. There's no doubt about it. I had a little different perspective as far as the business goes. I don't think we're ready to actively recruit businesses Not that we wouldn't embrace it if somebody decided they came here, but the fact is we do need housing. If we've got a situation where some of our public servants and first responders can't afford the housing in, we need housing for them as well as some of our potential businesses. So that was certainly the first on the list.
So in theory, that's grants that might be available for low-cost housing or something.
Investment
Indeed.
monies. This is external investment for purposes of tax credit. So to say grants, I mean it's individual and corporate type things.
It would invite a developer to come in and build affordable housing that they would, what affordable housing is, it's a perfectly fine house that we all have. The difference is the cost to the user or the renter or the owner of the house would be under the market value to allow them to be able to move in. This gives us a workforce. That's why we have, the housing committee that we're part of here. So, and the advantage of them to do that, why they would be willing to take maybe a break even or a slight loss on a housing project, is because of the tax credit. We don't control it. But of course, we have the zoning on where you could put it, how big it could be, if it's a complex or individual homes, kind of like the houses behind the Dome Bar and Grill. That's affordable housing. It's pretty, it's clean, it fits into us, and it allows us to have a workforce in this community, something we really need. So affordable housing is something that I think we all embrace. And this is the type of thing that will allow an investor to come in and say, I could make it work because of not the income from the rent or the sale of the house, but because of the tax credits that I have. So I
What's
think
the
we'd
group's
be
pleasure?
remiss not moving forward on it. So, I'll make a motion that we approve the Colorado Opportunity Zone input form to be submitted to the Upper Arkansas Area Council of Governments so that Custer County can be evaluated to see if it could be awarded the title of an Opportunity Zone to allow affordable housing and infrastructure improvements within the county.
Is there a second? Is there a second to the motion?
Charles, thank you.
Hearing none, motion dies for lack of a second.
Now,
Thank you,
what
sir.
I would like to do is make a motion. I would like to be able to come up to speed, and so would Tom, and with Jay, to have a meeting.
I don't think it matters. If we don't make a submittal today,
Well, I'm
Thank you, sir.
not suggesting we don't do it today.
you've just done that.
We
You're
could,
free to make a
we
motion
could
if you so choose.
move to take a hard look at it. I don't think there's a... But that would, I don't think we'd get anywhere.
I was remiss in a responsibility, so with you gentlemen's approval, I would like to go back and introduce a member that's here today. I had it on my agenda under commissioner items, and I totally forgot to do that. Thank you. At this time, I would like to introduce Miss Shannon Auth, A-U-T-H is the spelling of her last name. She is our new Director of Extension for Custer County. So nice to have you here. I'm sorry I did not introduce you during our commissioner items. But thank you for being here.
And we welcome you.
Shannon started last Tuesday, and so we are glad to have her on board. So thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. I know we've got some issues. We will I'm going to take a couple comments from the public at this point. It is against our policy to do that. So, but it is also, we agreed that we would allow public comment before any vote. So I want to honor that. That was my mistake. I should have allowed that opportunity. So we'll take 3 comments from the public.
There's no vote.
No, there wasn't a vote, but there was a motion, and really we should probably address the language of that, really. But the intent was of our policy to allow public comment prior to the board voting on any issue. Technically, we didn't vote on an issue, so I would be well within the rights of the chair not to take public comment at this time, but I will. Go ahead, ma'am.
I mean, just curious. It seems like the government dropped the ball and the infrastructure here could really use some updating. What would it hurt just to put in, I mean, you can always back out later. It just seems now to let the grant go or whatever this is, just doesn't make any sense.
Okay. All right, next. Yes, ma'am. You. Ms. Watson, yes.
Elizabeth Watson. I agree with Candace. I'm sitting back here listening to your discussion, which was very well presented. And what harm would it be to put Custer County's name on the list? There's 500 and some odd potential counties that are eligible for this. They're only going to choose 125. We do have a lot of needs that might make us look good in front of them. And so if there's no harm in putting the name on the list, as Mr. Vogel said, that we can back out at any time, why not give our county that opportunity? It only helps our clinic, our school, our businesses, the people that live here and are truly trying to make a living, to give those opportunities to this community.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I agree with the general discussion that's going. I think with the ability to back out without any harm, you would have plenty of time to review the documents. And what you're doing is you're not giving yourself the opportunity to fully look into this because of the short time. And I understand that you're being put on the spot, but because there's a backup provision that anybody can back out at any time, you're really not on the spot. You're just having to say, yes, we'll look at it further. And because of the short time frame, you are just not looking at the opportunity. And you can have a future meeting that you say, we don't want it. We've looked at it further. We don't want it. We're going to back out. But you're not allowing yourself that opportunity.
One more. I said 3. Shows you what a weak chairman I am. Go ahead, sir.
I agree with the board's decision that they just made based on this. You don't know what you're signing up for. If you sign up, you haven't read it, you haven't reviewed it. That's not planned well, in my opinion, and for you to just move forward, make a decision that you're going to maybe be on a contingency to back out of something you know nothing about at this point, I support the decision.
Thank you. Any further old business come before the meeting at this time?
No, sir.
Mr. Kanda? We'll move on to new business. Review the vouchers. I hope, gentlemen, you had an opportunity to go through those.
I did. And I have a question on just one expenditure. I know the treasurer's not here, but there's a $427 expenditure for family support, registry for garnishments. I have not remember seeing that in the past.
Yeah, it was on our last month's.
What is that?
It's a garnishment of wages. It was on our last month's.
It's for child
It's
support.
there, it's been there, it's been there.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I just didn't remember.
yeah, no problem. Okay. Anything else?
The rest of them look pretty standard.
I would move that we approve the vouchers as submitted.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the vouchers for, as submitted by the Finance Office. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We will, so that the audience understands the process, we need to initial these vouchers. Then they will be sent back over to the Finance Department, and she will run those checks, and we'll sign those checks today during this meeting. So if you will bear with us for a minute, I've tried to multitask and sign these and conduct business, and I started writing business down on the vouchers. So, but we'll just quickly initial these, and then they will go to the Finance Office.
Okay,
Sorry.
makes the job easy. There's 3 there.
And gentlemen, for personal reasons, I'm going to request a 2-minute recess. Any objection? No. Thank you. Meeting will come to order. Next item of business, under new business.
Hold it, hold it.
If I got to bang that gavel again, I will.
Oh, please don't. Well, warn me first.
Okay.
Next item under new business is a presentation of Mr. Bill Baker concerning the fair. You have the floor, sir. You're welcome to come forward. Good morning. How are you?
Good, sir.
How you doing, Bill?
Bill, nice to see you.
Thanks.
What can we do for you, sir?
Well, sir, I was appointed by the last set of county commissioners to the Fair Board. The Fair Board didn't really like that because they had changed their bylaws like they normally do, so that they instituted a policy where only they, not the county commissioners, could select the members of the Fair Board. I don't think that's quite right. Now, whether that exists still or not, I do not know. They also have systematically removed the opportunity to fundraise from what used to be the 4-H Foundation by taking away the banner sales and by taking over the dinner. This systematic thing started with the 4-H Foundation when the 4-H Foundation tried to illegally give the Fair Board $4,000 for livestock improvements. Those improvements were subsequently paid for by one of the old county commissioners. There's supposed to be a process where all the information from the Fair Board vets through the Extension Office. That doesn't really happen very much. In the years that I've been involved in this, you could probably find less than 20 copies of their entire minutes over a 6 or 8 year period. They have instituted a policy where they have raised the percentage rate that they charge the children to sell their animals from 1 to 1.5 and now to 3%. So if they made $162,000 last year, they got 3% of $162,000, and they already had $20,000 in their account that they hadn't spent. My point is that they love to spend money on livestock entity. They don't want to spend money on non-livestock projects because there isn't any money in it for anyone. All of us that don't do those projects have to pay. We, in shooting sports, only get our ammo through donations or grants that we write or things like that. Nobody gives us anything. All I'm trying to get is for it to be fair for everyone. If one child is awarded 4 different categories for one project, why isn't every child awarded 4 different categories for every project? We should treat all of the youth the same. Our job should be positive youth development. Not, oh, well, you're doing this one, so you get this, and you don't get this because you're not doing that. And everyone has a choice of what they do. And everyone should have that choice. I'm not here to say what anyone should or shouldn't do, just that it should be equal and not contrived to make it seem like one set of projects is always awarded and presented more than others. They just don't think that they work for the commissioners. And in the past, the commissioners that they had just let them run wild. And we've all talked together that we can't go back and change the past, but I'm hoping that in moving forward we can get somewhere with this so that everyone has a fair chance. And if somebody wants to complain, they don't have to pay $50 to complain on a form that says livestock when they're not complaining about a livestock problem. It is just the mentality that the 4-H world does not revolve around livestock. It started with home economics.
Can I ask you a question, please? We visited with this recently. I say recently, within the last 6, 8 months, year, this kind of question came up. And I really hear what you're saying. What would you suggest that we could do to help alleviate some of these anxieties and issues that you're bringing? Just complaining to, and I don't mean this as a complaint, presenting the problems to us doesn't solve anything. Do you have a suggestion on how we could move forward to fix what's broken?
I believe the best way the commissioners could move forward to fix what's broken is that they exert their responsibilities, the three of them exert their responsibilities, and make the Fair Board understand that they are not an entity unto themselves, that they are in fact supported by the county.
Let me ask a question next then. Did you talk to the Fair Board? Have you gone to them and presented exactly what you just said and got them on board with what the issues were? Did they come back to you with examples of why they are the way they are and their authorities?
The very first meeting, Bill, that I went to at the Fair Board, they tried to throw George Coons and I out because they weren't going to accept that the commissioners had appointed us. So then I wrote a letter to the president of the Fair Board and told her some of my concerns, and she wrote me back a letter that said that I was just absolutely crazy.
So your answer is you haven't talked to the Fair Board?
I have to end
And haven't presented?
as a member, but not since I was removed from the Fair Board. No, I have not.
Tom?
Have you expressed any of your concerns to the sale committee?
The sale committee is a part of the Fair Board now, which is another thing that's odd to this county of many things. Of the many things that I suggested to them, they took none, except that they now have 2 signers on their checks. And that was something that I brought up, and they did adopt. They didn't adopt that IT should do something for the Fair Board so that they have an IT presence. They didn't adopt any term limits to alleviate the revolving door of who is president, vice president, etc., because it's just a revolving door.
So, you used to be the president of the Fair Board, is that correct?
No, sir.
No, what were you the president of?
I was the president of the 4-H Foundation before it was closed down because of lack of an agent.
I got it. And had you instituted or recommended any changes when you were in that capacity?
To the Fair Board? I was the member of that committee designated to the Fair Board. The Fair Board would not accept any changes that I had to that I brought to them, whether it was in the way they ran it, how they awarded it. What I had to say was not relative.
Okay. My feeling is, and I'm certainly not speaking for my fellow commissioners, I think we need to have a dialogue with the Fair Board and you to discuss these issues and to determine what in fact their response is so that we can have a more balanced approach to what's going on. I agree with you, they work at the leisure of the commission, the county commissioners, an autonomous group they are not. And if in fact that is an issue, then that needs to be addressed. But I personally would like to hear both sides of the issue and see if we can work out whatever these problems may be and come to some resolution. So does that make sense to my fellow commissioners?
I guess my initial thought here is no, it does not. I think this should not probably come to the Board of County Commissioners until it's been vetted through the proper channels. If Mr. Baker has not presented his arguments to the Fair Board or his position, I think that needs to happen. If they cannot reach some kind of resolution, then I would agree that the Board of County Commissioners would be the next appropriate.
That's why I asked the question personally, is we do have a process, we have to respect it. That Fair Board is appointed by us. They are obligated to come to us with issues that need our attention. They need to have that process, and they need that vetting internally. I don't know, I don't believe we're such a small county and everybody knows everybody and we want to help and we all have the best interests of our kids at heart. I do, you do. They sure don't need to see us arguing about things that are not going to be able to be settled in a good gentleman fashion, or ladies and gentlemen. And I need to see, and in fact, I think when this first came up some time ago, we did have a presentation by the Fair Board, or I think Sarah was here at the time. Maybe it wasn't the Fair Board, but it needs to include all people in all aspects and give us a nice orderly presentation back to say, here's the issues, here's what was resolved, here's what's not. And if it falls upon our board here to make a decision, then we need to determine that in that meeting. We can't sit here today, like Jake made a good point. What's the alternative? What's the fix? We can't, we don't have enough data to tell us what the fix is right now.
I also want to say to Mr. Baker and to you two gentlemen, I sat on the Fair Board for over 25 years. I chaired the sale committee for 3 years. I understand that there's a lot of interrelationship between those two entities for sure. I don't want to get into dealing with specifics of what has happened in the past, what the old percentages were for the livestock sale. That doesn't have anything to do with our discussion today, I don't believe. If that is an issue with you, then I would say, as I have, that that's what you need to take up with the sale committee or the Fair Board. That's their responsibility. Counselor submitted a memo concerning boards and committees to us this morning, and interestingly that it really comes back around, almost full conversation, that typically in Custer County, boards appointed by our county have the authority to spend funds allocated to them, make decisions, set policy, and manage day-to-day operations for their designated purpose. If they were not doing that, or doing that outside of the realm of their authority, then I believe it would be our responsibility to deal with those matters. Now, if you believe that is the case, then that is a different conversation.
But present it to them and get the data and bring it to us.
I have never been able to get anywhere. I will be glad to do what you suggest. I've been beating my head against this wall for this is the 5th year.
Publicly, you've just put them on notice. They're here. They hear you. They're going to read about it in the paper. There's no reason why they're not going to talk to you. If for some reason there was a reason that it happened, go work it.
I've been involved in this for quite a while, this discussion that's gone back and forth, and I recognize that there's some disagreement as to the management of the organization. My concern is, as Chairman Flower just mentioned, if there's an exceeding of the authority that they have, that's when I'm concerned about it. Up until that point, I'll stay out of it. That's not my area. You've brought that to us a couple times. I think you have made it clear, to me at least, that you have made efforts to try and resolve some of this, and that's why I was suggesting meet this time. I absolutely agree with you. A conversation between you and whomever needs to take place. I have no issue with that. And then if you can't resolve it, I know you've told us in the past that you've attempted and you were unsuccessful to have that conversation, then I think we need to bring it back. So I'm going to agree with my fellow commissioners that at least try again to sit down and work out what you feel, how they're usurping their responsibility and their authority, and if you feel that that's continuing and it can't be resolved, then I think it needs to come to the commissioners to intervene. Until then, I think they need to run their organization as they see fit, as our counselor told us they have the authority to do.
And I have a couple questions for you, if you don't mind, sir. Officially, your involvement with Extension/4-H. Can you articulate that to us?
I'm the senior shooting sports instructor for the county.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is, you indicated that you have served as a president of the 4-H Foundation. You indicated that that was closed down, that no longer exists.
with our new agent, hopefully that will open back up. Whether I will obtain that position or not, I do not know.
Okay, my question is, are you aware of who closed down that foundation?
I certainly am.
Would you mind sharing that with us?
CSU did, because there was no one to run it.
Okay, thank you.
Not because membership wouldn't run it, but because of the problem with the county.
And if I really could, I'd like just for the record to reflect, they did not shut anything down. They suspended it pending a new CSU agent. So it's very important to say that, because we didn't have someone in that position, they just held off until we got someone in. So they didn't shut anything down. They stopped it until.
Well, and even suspend is not really accurate, because CSU has continued to disperse funds from the account of money that was in existence.
That's correct.
So it certainly has not been shut down, has not been frozen. It really wasn't suspended. CSU really took the financial control of that and suspended the rest of that, is my basic understanding. But that's okay. All right, good. Anything else, sir?
Then I would request that, since you're the commissioner in charge, that you have me put on the agenda for the next fair board meeting.
Okay, let me respond to that. I'm not the commissioner in charge of anything except running a meeting, because I've been elected as the chair. So other than that, I'm not in charge of anything. Now, if you mean if I'm the point of contact for extension,
Yes.
then I would.
Then that's what you are, Tom.
Okay. All right. I don't want you, and I don't want anybody in this room to think I'm in charge of anything except running this meeting. I can be the point of contact for 15 different things. Does not mean I am in charge.
Unless
I've
we
said
act,
that
yeah.
in several meetings, and I will continue to say that. If you have an issue with one of the things that I've been charged to be in the point of contact, you're welcome to call me or any other commissioner. Don't think for a minute, folks, I'm in charge of that. I am not in charge of extension. I am not in charge of IT. I'm the contact person for that. I will continue to beat the table on this until I'm voted out of office, because it's ridiculous. These three commissioners are in charge. I am not in charge. I don't believe Bill thinks he's in charge of Road and Bridge. I think Bill thinks he is the contact person for Road and Bridge. That's how this system was set up. But I digress, or I apologize for that. Restate your request, please.
I request that I be placed on the agenda for the next fair board meeting, since you wish me to contact them and try to work something out with them.
Okay,
Just for a second.
then
Since
you're
you are
making
the
that
contact
request to the
point.
wrong person, because
That's
I don't
right.
control the agenda for the fair board. You need to talk to the president of the fair board, ask her to be put on the agenda. That's what I would do if I'd had something to bring to the fair board.
And that's what I would like to recommend. That's where I was headed next. Our charge to you is to get, and the fair board, anybody like a part of the fair board in here? That
President came in when I saw.
there's a
However,
couple. There's a couple
sure.
in here. I would like to recommend you get there, and you. What I've seen in the past, people have differences and different ways of understanding, but unless they get into a meeting together, not one-on-one, and what do you think, and then going to this other person and triangulating. It means getting together. That fair board would be more than happy, I'm sure, to sit there with you and do that. If they don't, then that is what ought to come forward. They're not cooperating. They're not executing the duties of their office that we've appointed them to be. So go back and get with them and see what differences there are, and if there's any issues that need to be straightened out, point of contact can deal with it with you, and then come make a recommendation to come to the board.
And that will be his decision to bring it to the board or not.
Right.
And it's going to have to be something that is beyond the authority that the fair board
Currently
has.
has.
Because if they have the authority, we've given that to them, they can do it. So they're going to have, you're going to have to come with something that says that they're usurping their authority, and then it becomes Tom, and then Tom decides if it's something that needs to come to the three of us. That's the procedure. May not be great, may not be what you want, but that is the way it is.
I think the beauty of the whole process is that you had requested to be put on the Board of Commissioners agenda, and that was allowed. Anyone in this county can do that.
Right.
I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we honor and follow the policies and the procedures that are in place. And let's take the fair board and yourself out of the mix for a minute. I certainly wouldn't be standing here making decisions on behalf of any of our boards, including the airport board. We talked about it this morning. We decided it wouldn't be appropriate to rename the airport board without their involvement in it. So I hope you understand where we're coming from. We're not trying to dodge any bullets. We're not trying to dodge our responsibilities. If we feel we have a responsibility, I believe we'll step up and we'll take care of that. But I think this needs to be dealt with internally with whatever organization or whatever boards you have an issue with. If you were to come back and say, I tried and got nowhere, then I would say we would have to move forward from there.
And they're usurping their authority that is already given to them in this area. Be specific. Then I agree with you, Tom, completely. So it's more steps to take.
I'll take
not
whatever
shutting any
steps are
doors
necessary.
Yeah. And I would say then that step, to me, it's pretty simple. One step would be to contact the president and ask to be put on their agenda, explain to her why you would like to be on that agenda, and then move forward. I can't tell you what's going to happen after that. I've read their bylaws. They seem to be in order. They're dated. We don't have anything to do with their bylaws.
Last ones I saw weren't even signed by a set of commissioners.
I don't think that's
We don't sign
abnormal,
bylaws.
but
We don't approve any organization's bylaws.
Perhaps you should.
That's another issue to discuss.
Bring it forward.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's all I have.
Mr. Baker, thank you.
thank you, sir.
I appreciate your concerns, and please don't give up.
Thanks, Bill.
Next item on the agenda is the liquor license for the San Isabel Lodge. Ms. Kemper, the floor is yours.
I have received a liquor license application for the lodge at San Isabel. And if you remember right, we did one just a month or two ago. That was for their 3-2 license. This is actually for their restaurant. And nothing has changed. I asked for a sheriff's report and that all came back good. They have submitted their money and the application is complete, and so now it just needs your approval.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that, as being responsible for this, to the best of your knowledge, everything is complete, up to date, and there's no reason that you're recommending we do not do this.
Right.
Okay. I'll move that we approve the renewal for the liquor license for the San Isabel Lodge.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the liquor license for the San Isabel Lodge. Further discussion. You have that document with you today, ma'am?
I do.
And a check, apparently.
And a check. You need to sign.
Any further discussion? What's the fee, standard fee for this?
500 to the state and 100 to us.
And those are in two separate checks?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll vote that we reverse that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we proceed to vote. All in favor of approving the liquor license for San Isabel Incorporated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay, motion carries.
We vote we have the meeting in their restaurant next year, or next time, and have a beer with them.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. The next item of business is the DOLA grant application. I had placed on the agenda a 15-minute public comment opportunity prior to us voting. If we are to vote at all, whether we vote or not, I will honor that 15-minute public comment. I will time that. It will, I guess, will be up to the individuals that speak to determine how much of that 15 minutes they feel obligated to use. I guess my question to my fellow commissioners is this. Would you prefer to hear public comment prior to making a motion if one is to be made? Would you consider making a motion, having our discussion, hearing public comment? I'm certainly open for your opinions on it.
My suggestion would be, if there is a motion and a second, that would come first.
Okay.
This is always discussion period in
procedure.
between that before the vote. I'd like the commissioners to have an opportunity, once, if there is a motion and a second, to make a comment, and then open it to the audience, and then take the vote. Does that sound reasonable?
I believe it does. I would add a caveat to that I would suggest to you three gentlemen that once we enter into that timed 15-minute public comment, that we honor that and allow that to be public comment, and that we do not enter into a dialogue, because the minute we say anything, we are robbing the opportunity for anyone in the audience that wants to speak time to do so. Does that
Yeah, I
sound
would like to
reasonable?
hear what they got to say first, because it matters in how we respond, and we can leverage what they're saying, if they have anything to say or not. I like that idea. And then be prepared for our comments, and we want to make sure you're comfortable as our bosses. As a matter of fact, I'm even in my comment, I might even use that grease board.
Certainly, as commissioners, we can have unlimited discussion about any motion at any time. So,
Right.
but I just feel like if we're going to time the public comment, then that needs to be what it is public comment, and not a dialogue between the public and the commissioners. That's all I'm saying.
If I can
Yes,
move forward, if I may.
yes, sir.
She had a question.
Was it-
No, let's go. We're not in public comment. Go ahead, sir.
Before I make a motion, and I will make a motion in just a second, I'd just like to remind my fellow commissioners that this has been voted on and approved previously by a prior administration. Appropriately, it was brought up because we have new commissioners, so I have no issues with that, but I want to just remind you that this has been voted on previously, and this is either an affirmation of a prior commission vote or a let's let it drop. With that being said, I would like to move that the Board of County Commissioners endorse and approve the DOLA grant request by the Economic Development Corporation. The DOLA grant is for about $1 million to build 6 towers in Custer County with a presumption that an additional $1 million will be matched by the federal government to build towers that will not only hold broadband equipment, but some will also hold, or could hold, we don't know if they'll hold broadband towers, telephone, cellular service, which may improve our 911 system. So I move that we approve the grant request to be forwarded to DOLA for the $1 million.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'm going to restate your motion. It's my duty to do that. The minute I restate it in any manner that you're uncomfortable with as a maker of the motion, you stop me, would you please? It has been moved and seconded that the Board of County Commissioners endorse and approve the grant request that the Custer County Board of Commissioners have submitted to the Department of Local Affairs through the efforts of the Economic Development Committee. Are you comfortable with that?
Is that correct, Charles?
You bet. The county is making the action.
Okay. I thought we approved your request, but that's fine. I accept it. The bottom line is,
We either
the
move forward or
county
we
is
don't.
moving.
That's correct,
So
yes.
I'm fine with that.
Any discussion? And if I'll jump on
I'll
this
call the
real.
question.
Hold on just a second. We will get to the public comment section, okay, so please bear with us. When I asked for discussion, I apologize, I was asking these gentlemen if they had any discussion about this. And I guess I would start by just saying that I rephrased the motion that you made specifically to indicate on record as well as to our audience today that this is a Board of Custer County Commission grant being submitted on our behalf by the Economic Development Corporation. They are not submitting this grant. This is a county grant. They are working for the county in submitting this grant to us.
And in fact, we are submitting it to the state.
We are submitting
And
it to the state.
Commissioner has to be present, or all of us, to
Well-
make sure that it's backed by the county.
By DOLA's request,
That's
at
right.
least one commissioner has to be there. And let me just say this, if I may, gentlemen, that if you're not aware, we are scheduled to set in on a hearing on March 13th or 14th. They have not written the final agenda. When I say they, I mean the Department of Local Affairs are having the hearings on numerous grants that they have been asked to fund. That meeting is in Golden, and if we will be represented there if we vote to move forward with this. This is kind of the pivotal point with this whole broadband tower grant. If we vote today to move forward, then we will be at that meeting and have representation in that hearing. If we vote not to move forward, then that our application will be pulled out of that process, and that's where we will stand. So I don't know if I'm making myself clear to you. If you have not been on the loop about exactly what is going on, I know there's been a lot of information put out there, some of it very accurate, most of it sort of inaccurate. But this is a county grant that the County Board of Commissioners will be submitting to DOLA's for their final consideration. March, they have indicated to us that they should be able to let us know about those grants sometime near or around the first part of April. There's not been a deadline set for that. So that's, I guess I'm sharing our discussion time to at least make an attempt to help the Fair Board understand where we're at.
Help the board. Okay, I'm going to reserve my comments to like we said, I want to hear you all first.
Right.
But one point I will make from a background point of view, what's been approved so far by previous boards and by us when we came on duty in November has been to proceed with the grants that were in process at the time with no commitment from the county for any money to be spent up till now. We've got to get to the point where once we submit this, there are some things that we have to do, and we're going to describe. I will bring them up after you all talk, and we'll have a good discussion on what the way forward is or could be.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I will be surprised if everybody in this room has an opportunity to speak in a 15-minute time period. I think we all recognize that. So I don't think it would be abnormal at the end of that 15-minute time discussion, if the commissioners so desire, to take a straw poll, and you could indicate to us where you shake out on this issue by a show of hands. I'm not opposed to allowing that. If the fellow commissioners are not, we could certainly do that. We're not trying to put a gag order on anybody. We've had a lot of discussion as a Board of County Commissioners about this topic, both here and in our recent Wetmore Board of County Commissioners. It has been my take all along to represent the county and make decisions for this county based on accurate and adequate information that I can vote on any issue of what I feel in my heart is right for this county. It doesn't matter to me who the players are. I'm not going to vote for or against something because I do or do not agree with the person sitting in front of us making a request. If it doesn't feel right for me, for this county, then I'll probably vote against it. And I know, and I'm struggling because have already been times when I feel personally one way, And that does not line out with what I truly believe is right for this county. And I'm not speaking for these two gentlemen, they're welcome to speak for themselves, but I want you to know that that's where it kind of shakes out with me. Any other discussion, gentlemen, before we move into public comment? Is Brenda in here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Gentlemen, are you comfortable with having these checks stamped today? I am not going to sit here and
Don't do
sign
it now.
checks while we're in this thing. So certainly legally we can either hand sign these checks or we can stamp them. That either one of those are acceptable.
I wonder why they're ever hand signed. Why don't we approve the voucher? That's every month. That's the list. Why they get hand signed, I don't understand. I trust our treasurer. I trust our economic folks to give us checks that match the vouchers. Let the machine go and let's get them out.
If you don't get your check, blame the machine.
Do you have any
Blame me
objections?
for not. We don't even look at them when we sign them. So I mean, it just makes no sense to me.
Ms. Katie,
Yes,
would you mind
I do not mind.
if I hand these to some? Are you a responsible person of this? Semi.
I don't want to touch this.
Yeah. Yeah, whoever does not want to, then we'll know where you shake out as a reputable citizen of the county. Hold on just a second. Any further discussion, gentlemen? At this time, we can certainly come back later.
On checks or on broadband?
On broadband, that was a sidebar. If not, then here's the other thing. I've sat in, I don't know how many meetings, and invariably, whoever's chairing that meeting says, all right, go ahead. Today, we're going to start in the back of the room and come forward, and I would ask you that when you speak, because we are live streaming this meeting, including the audio, of course, so if you would at least, if you're in the back, come partially to the front and just state your name, because there have been people that come in after the meeting started. And then I would ask you, I will stay here till, I don't care, it doesn't matter to me how long we're here. But I have set a 15-minute time limit, so I would ask that you honor your members of your audience and try to keep your comments brief and succinct. The other request would be, because I'm probably going to give you the opportunity to indicate where you shake out on this, is if you basically want to say the same thing that somebody else has said, you have that right, but if it's something we've already heard, then I would encourage you to think maybe we ought to allow the opportunity for other people because they may have something else to say. Here's my fervent prayer, and I mean that sincerely, man. I was on the old prayer thing last night saying I hope that this 15-minute public comment thing is productive. I have not decided how I'm going to vote on this issue. I have held off on that to honor this 15-minute thing, and I'm hoping that somebody has something new that I haven't had pounded on me in the last 2 months, because that's why I've waited to make a decision. Yes.
Just a point of clarification,
Yep.
if I may, please. The 15 minutes is a total cumulative 15 minutes, not 15 minutes per person. I wasn't clear.
That was my very
Joke, I meant
intent.
that
Yes.
sincerely.
Okay, and I can't help this because Tom can't either. You got to interject something. I am wanting you to reassure you, 15 minutes doesn't sound like much. It matters, but always remember, you elected the three of us because of our qualifications, not because of other things. There are reasons we're here making decisions for you. You have to acknowledge that. And part of the reason we have the discussion we do in public, and it sounds like we're arguing over things and confusing things or whatever, it's to get better understanding, because each of us have a different frame of reference and different people that have been calling us and seeing us and our different experiences and qualifications that we bring to this job. You're going to see some of that today. So trust your judgment when you voted, on the ballot. And that happens all the time. It's the great thing about this democracy we're in. So you're going to see sausage be made, and if you got the patience to do it, I'm glad you're here. I really am. So
The other thing I prayed about just now is that I do not forget the words of the motion, because we still have a motion on the floor. So with that, I will start the time. Please understand, I will not be rude, but when 15 minutes time is up, I will say time is up and we will move forward. If that interrupts you, I
see the clock's
apologize.
on the wall.
I apologize in advance. Public comment. Yes, sir, go ahead. Name, please?
Eric Price, am I forward here?
Yeah, that's fine. If you can just speak up, yeah.
Eric Price, I've been a resident of Custer County since July of 2016. The reason why I was able to move here is because I was able to get a broadband connection to work from home. Now, that's a great opportunity. I don't consider that a right. The concerns I have with this is, well, I often see things that concern me where governments will get involved with things that I think should be private endeavors. This is one of them. Now, I know that this happens. It happens at all levels of government, but that's my biggest concern. I understand that the reimbursement to the county is supposed to happen by leasing these towers in this space. Understanding that, I have a real concern with the company I'm currently with that has provided subpar service, both customer service and internet service. I've lost my internet for 4 days at a time. I've contacted the company, said that I need somebody to get back in touch with me. They said they would call me when the equipment's up and running, and I never got contacted. I was never notified. I work from home. That's my livelihood. So I have concerns with the current companies that currently offer service still being on that tower, on those towers, and that they're going to be reliable. Will both companies provide the same level of service to all areas on those towers? So I have options. I also used satellite for a while as a backup to my current internet. It was unusable. I'll just say it's unusable. Current service, when the power's gone out, the internet's gone out. I have a generator at home, so I can still work. If my internet's out, I can't work. These are things that are, if we're talking about wanting to improve broadband coverage in the county, we have many areas that can be improved. Adding more towers is not just the only solution. There has to be more consideration of all of those factors, and we're not just going to, hopefully we're not just putting up towers just to add more coverage for the same problems we've already got. So.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Good job.
Yes, sir.
My name is Charlie Ellison. I've only been in the county for a year, and I'm operating 3 Airbnbs, and I won't take a property where I can't get broadband, but this is far more than my own parochial interest. I also have 25 years of telecom experience, Siemens, Time Warner Telecom, level 3, so I have some insight because I actually was the person making business cases for going into data centers all over the country for some of the largest telecom players. And so this to me, and I am also, I hate big tops-down government, but now and then government makes sense because it's just like building a road. Building a road and building these towers is very analogous because what we're doing is we're putting up a tower, my understanding, and $2 million funding from state and federal, and we're already paying those taxes. I'm more interested in our county. And all we're going to do is we're going to rent space to various carriers. So if you don't like 2, if it's cheaper, if you have a lower barrier of entry to get onto those towers, and now you can have 4, 5 different players, and you can get LTE from AT&T, or you get the fixed wire service from Seacom or anyone else that wants to get in. Now we've opened the doors so that there will be more competition, customer service will improve, you'll have more choices, and this lady here, she told me nothing will reach her place because she's in the trees, but if there's 6 towers instead of the 1 AT&T tower, now you have 7 chances. And I do understand that about the only financial risk to the county is the maintenance cost ongoing. But I'm going to offer a little bit of a solution. Since I have been in telecom sales, I would give time, work part-time for an incentive program to go out and sell to those carriers and those fixed wireless carriers to put their towers up there, and I'm sure that'll cover the maintenance costs. It's a good deal for the county.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to bring up the,
Name, please.
oh, Candace McDaniel. I was talking to the sheriff just this morning, and there is a program out there called First Net. It actually just is for our first responders, and there's a bandwidth on the broadband that would help our fire department, police officers, ambulance, when they're in these no-zone areas, be able to get better service to help the community. I'm looking beyond the internet and thinking about 911. Some people can't reach 911 when they have an emergency. So that's all I'm saying is Sheriff Byerly says that the broadband correlates completely with, being able to get in touch with our emergency response. And then he didn't have cell phone service. He had to get on his radio, go to a channel that they weren't communicating on, and talk important business because he couldn't get a cell phone signal out. And then when the towers bog and all those kind of things, this would completely help all of that.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Name,
I'm
please.
Linda Washington. And just a couple of things that I'm hoping is true. We keep being told there's the $2 million, and we think that the $2 million is going to cover this for the 6 towers and getting the roads built and the power to it and everything else. So I just want to make sure that the county is not committing any money to build these 6 towers, because that's all it is the infrastructure of the towers. It's not really broadband, it's not really cell service, it's not really anything other than, in my mind, it's to hold Christmas lights if we don't get anything else on it. But if that's the case, then to build these things, so if the $2 million isn't enough, are we going to have 1 tower or 2 towers or 4 towers? Are we going to have all 6 towers? Is it all or nothing? I'm still not clear on that, so I hope that you can give us some more information on that. I don't think the $500 a month for the maintenance that we were told is going to be is really going to be it. But if that is the case, then that's $3,000 a month for all 3 or all 6 towers, which is $36,000 a year.
600.
With 3,600. Okay. Anyway, it's going to be in that thousands of dollars over the 20-year lifespan of this project, and just knowing that the county is then saying we're good with paying $50,000, $100,000, whatever this maintenance is going to be over the next 20 years for what may possibly be just Christmas lights, stands, as compared to, whatever, if we don't get these companies on us. And CCOM already has 20 towers in the county now, so if they have 20 towers and their towers are 20 feet tall, why don't they build taller towers if they felt that the taller towers were needed?
Thank you. All right. Just so you know, we're halfway done. Yes, sir.
I had occasion to be.
Name,
Come on up.
please.
Sorry.
That's all right. No, take your time.
My name is Gary Taylor, 10 years in
Sorry,
the Valley.
Gary Taylor, thank you.
With living in Silver Cliff Ranch. I had occasion to be at the El Pomar Foundation meeting. It was a 5-county group. There were commissioners, there were mayors, there were 501c3 members, and broadband came up as one of the highest important things. And there must have been 50 people in the room. There wasn't a comment to the contrary. Everybody felt that this was an important thing. So I'm speaking in favor of this. I think I've heard there's issues with the presentation. The commissioners are in a position to shave off rough edges, in my opinion. You can commission a group if you work at. To me, leaving $1 million or $2 million on the table would be a tough thing. So I urge you not to throw the baby out with the bathwater on this.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Either one. Yep, you guys decide.
I'm Maddie Burt, and I would say every single realtor, which there are 60, I think 40 or 60 realtors in our county, every single one, I will guarantee when we have people coming in showing the county, they all want to know about our internet, our broadband. So, number one, please, please, please believe that. I don't lie, please. Because we have to say, well, it's spotty. And even if we make not a mention of it, when we're driving around, our people are on their cell phones. Someone said that the cell phones are...
Not while you're driving.
Oh, no. Our buyers, they're back communicating with their office or whatever, so they know. We don't have to tell them. They know we have not cell service everywhere. There's been two things, and by the way, the workshop was excellent. I learned even more than I thought I knew, and I don't know that much. But anyway, the workshop, the two things I heard in it was, objection was, what do you say? Who's the new guy in town? Hughes, that you talked to me about, Bill, the Hughes Network people, that they could be a possible alternative. The second was Tesla, the Tesla guy, Elon. Dear friend of ours works at, who's the satellite company? Lockheed Martin. He's 50 years old. He's worked there for 30 years, and I so wanted to have his paper with me or whatever his opinion was. And I said, tell me about Elon and what he's doing, because supposedly he's putting up 40 satellites, and that's going to solve our problem.
4,000.
Or 4,000, yeah, I think it's 12,000 is what I just heard from our guy. And he said, just don't count on that. He just launched last Saturday 2 satellites. He's got 12,000 to go. Obviously, that's not going to be done in a few years. So those, the only two objections I heard that could be possibles, that is what I researched and found out myself. And he's been with that company for 30 years, so an engineer, and I believe what he's saying. So please vote in favor of this. I feel like if the commissioners don't get this going forward, that we're almost taking a step backward. And then the last thing, and I'll shut up, but when you had the committees, like the Economic Development Committee or whatever it's called, and you have a lot of those committees, people volunteer. How many years have you worked on this? 7, 5? 7 years?
Longer than that.
No pay whatsoever. If in fact you don't take, and I saw on the workshop, books and books and books of the paperwork and all, if you disregard what they've done, who would want to volunteer for any more committees? And they're I'm not saying they're the experts, but I think they've gleaned a lot. So those are my comments only.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes. Ms. Watson.
I'm Elizabeth Watson. Lived here for 25 years. And
Speak loud.
Okay, 25 years, I'm sorry. Anyways, I agree with what Maddie said. I am also in the real estate business, and anyways, so you've heard that. There's a name in this county that is very old, Celesta Adams, and many people know who she is. Several people, might not know who she is, but she fought really hard because there was a time when this county didn't have electricity, and she fought no lights, no electricity. Dark skies would have liked that, but anyways, she ran up against this wall all the time. Why do we need lights? Why do we need electricity? How will it make our life better? I obviously wasn't here, but this is a story she told my husband, and obviously electricity came because she was forward thinking, and she knew that it was the future of what this county needed to step forward. And I truly feel that this broadband needs to be approved so that this county can stay a part of, what are we, the 21st century or whatever, 21st century with the rest of the world. If we didn't have electricity, we wouldn't be sitting here. Well, we would during the daylight, but not at night. It's important. It's important to realize that as electricity was important, that this broadband is important to every aspect of this community, the school, the clinic, the commissioners, the county. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Ann Wilson, been here for a long time. It's not a simple concept. As we talked in Wetmore, there's a lot of pros and cons. On my phone bill with CenturyLink, I pay for broadband. And I called them and said, but I don't have broadband. They said, oh yes, you have high-speed internet. I don't have high-speed internet, and it goes out just like that other gentleman. and many, many hours, a lot of times. And I think that we need to know too, what's the expense going to be to the individuals? I think that's very important.
Okay, thank you. Your timing is perfect because we're at 14 minutes and 50 seconds.
Somebody got a 10-second comment? Quick.
Yes, when you shoot a rocket to the moon, it doesn't go straight there. It's adjusting all the time. And so that's the only way you can get there, is adjusting all the time. And so hopefully commissioners would adjust when you make a decision, then you adjust as you go along.
I will restate the motion for you two gentlemen, and then we will press on. Again, the motion before the group is to endorse and approve the grant request that the county has submitted to the Department of Local Affairs. Further discussion.
Yeah, I've got a few comments. Jay, you want to be first, or do you have any comments? You made the motion. All right, this is the fun part because I love it. I enthusiastically endorse broadband, as do these guys, and it's necessary. And you guys made a lot of good comments. And I also follow up on who did the was it the electricity comment? Was that you, Elizabeth? Guess what? My family, my grandfather, actually had the first power plant in the house, in our house, generating electricity. And guess what he did? He worked with the soon-to-be REA to use our house as the demo place for the valley to make this new technology available to the county. And so it showed that you could get, instead of pouring gas into an engine, you could get somebody else be doing it 60, 70 miles away. So I'm all about technology and improving things and taking the lead. So what I want to do, I want to make a couple points. You hired us to do due diligence and to use our expertise. And I've been doing that. I actually had a meeting with CCOM, and I'm betting that's who you had a problem with, right? Yeah, there he is. Yeah. Terrible service. They have a bad rep, and the first thing he told me was, we have a bad reputation to overcome. And so that led into a discussion of what, and I'll give you the notes that I took here later. But let me talk about it because it involves our decision-making process that I want to convince these guys that we need to go ahead, but we need to do it responsibly because that's why you hired us. And use the limited funds we have. And who brought up not use county's funds? We want to use other funds and the rent on the towers, et cetera, et cetera. So we covered that all, and these guys have heard it before. So first of all, had the meeting. Secondly, and I'm going to have the same meeting with Hilltop. I ran out of time. But I'm going to read you, first of all, before I get into this. They did provide us in that workshop that some of you missed their intent to locate on these towers. Charles took the message back from our other discussions. They went back, got them, and here's their letters of intent. Pretty short and sweet, but they're similar. So I'm going to read to you what it said, and then I'm going to hit line by line and show you a timeline on here. And the reason I'm doing that is because we need your support if we vote to move ahead. And you'll see where the risks are. So I'm going to read CCOM's first. It says, this letter of intent is regarding the six towers, not one, not two. It's 6 towers proposed in Custer County that are intended to be used by WISPs. That's the wireless ISP providers. That's Hilltop and CCOM in this case. That's who Charles and the company have talked to. There are others out there, and then certainly we could design to throw on 20 of them. But I'm going to tell you why that's probably not practical. CCOM is expressing its intent to locate on those towers, pending some details, including, and I'm going to read those in a second. Hilltop's letter, a little less wordy, says the same thing. Here it goes. We have reviewed your broadband tower plan and commend your efforts to help bring high-speed internet, not the stuff that Ann Wilson's got, to the underserved areas of Custer County. And we do have issues like Ann has with trees in the way. Doesn't matter how many towers you have, you're going to always have a problem. Hilltop Broadband shares in your goals for reliable, see now they're banging on their competition, high-speed internet for these areas. As such, we intend to make use of the planned towers as designed. Our concerns our concerns for usability of these sites would be. Okay, so now they're going to step through what has to happen in order for them to sign a contract. They're not signing up to anything other than intent, provided some issues are met. CCOM did a good job of outlining those issues, which happen to be the same Hilltop mentioned. So I'm going to step through CCOM's little note here. Okay, so co-location price at an affordable rate. Co-location price at an affordable, that means leasing space on our tower. It's a county asset now, and we are not operating the internet. They are. We're providing a foundation for them. Affordable. And so I asked him, what does affordable mean? Before they answered that, it brought up a lot of other questions. First of all, do you understand what CCOM is? Some of you subscribe to it. So I asked them. They are already serving El Paso County, Fremont County, Huerfano County, most of the southeast part of Colorado, and they actually have 177 sites, 177 towers, 40 active sites in our local area, basically, 20 towers in Custer County proper. The surrounding area meant Fremont, Huerfano County, and Custer County primarily. So I asked them, so how's business? It turns out what you initially subscribed to when you first moved here was CCOM coming off of I-25 with a hard wire into Walsenburg. Fiber, great. Walsenburg's got great service. Well, in order to get us service, they have to beam it up here somehow, get it here, and then spread it around the county. So what they did, they actually, on their dime, invested in several towers. So out of Walsenburg, they shoot it into Gardner, and that site's called Sheep Mountain. And off of Sheep Mountain, coming up Gardner, up the divide over here, is another tower that intercepts that signal. It happens to be on Centennial Ranch. That's the only tower that doesn't have power to it directly, a utility. It has sun, wind generator, whatever, and that's the tower that they're using, solar rays, when I meant by sun. So it hits Sheep Mountain, hits Centennial Ranch, and then guess what? Harley Riggs helps us out. It goes right from there to the Riggs Ranch. And and of course, anybody surrounding these towers is picking up signals, right? From the Riggs Ranch, it goes to Hibbs Peak. That's what I call it, because Art Hibbs was the first guy that put a wave bender on just above Centennial Ranch to bend, called it bending it, but they retranslated it and shot Channel 7 or ABC and NBC up into the valley. You couldn't get it before that, and that was in the 60s. Still exists today, and we maintain that. The county, us commissioners, are responsible to make sure that the road and bridge guys give clearance up there to make sure they can maintain those towers. Then it goes out to Lake Deweese. They call it Deweese or Clay Mountain or Clay somebody. I think it was the Clay family that gave them the right of way to do that. So now you got coverage out there. From that point, it gets beamed, guess what? To Wetmore. But we're not going to leave out Wetmore in this. And right now, the current 6 towers doesn't give much coverage to Wetmore. But if we can include this in the ring, supposedly, then everybody's going to be happy. All our taxpayers can be happy. Now, how did they get there? The original link, the least links they had, only went into the Riggs place, really, and then into what you could get from there. What they did is purchase direct digital link, or whatever they were called, DDL, and purchased their sites. Now, that gave them the ability to complete the ring, which you need. You know why you lost your service? It's because one place went down in Walsenburg, and everybody upstream loses coverage. So they saw made a business decision. It wasn't the government. Who mentioned keeping government out of it a minute ago? It was driven by economy, the business cases that were made, and they purchased Direct Link and used their towers, and that allowed them to take it out of Arley's place, get it into Lake Deweese, get it up into Wetmore, and guess what? From Wetmore it goes back to Pueblo, into a fiber, and back on the ring. So that is what is going to improve reliability. It's not there yet. So I asked him, so when is it going to be there? part of Charles, and I appreciate your tutelage, the fact that that in order to make it more reliable, you need that loop. So what I've just described is I-25 coming up into Walsenburg, Gardner, up into the valley on Centennial Ranch, all around the valley on the towers I just mentioned, back into Wetmore, and then back into Pueblo, and back onto the fiber that's there. If you whack out something anywhere on the line here, it only affects the towers that exist. That way, you're going to have some unhappy campers around here. And unfortunately, the height of those towers isn't very tall. They're 20-footers. You go out to Arley Riggs, it's a good one. Just drive by her place, look up her driveway, and you'll see a very ugly tower with a lot of junk hung on it. It's more than just CCOM. There's internet and other things, and cell towers as well. So that's the plan. So I said, when's that plan going to be done? And he said, in 2 to 3 months is where they're going. And by the way, who's the he? I talked with their chief operations manager, who's in the valley now, and I can ask him to come in here anytime if we have other questions later, who works directly for the COO. His name, our operations manager's name is Elijah Quinn Ridgewell. He happens to come out of La Junta, and he makes the circuit into the valley about every day to maintain towers, check on them, make sure the service is there, etc. And he's the guy that told me they have a bad rep. And if they're that's where I'm going to look to you all to make sure you understand what their plan is and to help us if we decide to go forward this. Because if we decide to go forward with this, it's a commitment of this county to back it. And it could involve, and I'll get into this later, us looking, all right, we just lost a tower, we need to rebuild it. Now, you got to make sure it's insured, got to pay for the insurance, get that back, got to build it back, all those kinds of things. But we're not going to be able to complete the ring, and these guys are going to be out. But we're not in the management of that kind of thing, so we're going to talk about how we handle that, maybe. So, the operational ring is key. They say 2 to 3 months, and then you'll have more reliability, and we'll see what that means. Then I asked the question somebody just asked, what's it cost? There's a misunderstanding out here. It's not free service. It's not free money. There is tax money, and we've all signed up to use another tax money like the $2 million grants. You still want to be good stewards of that. You don't want to waste that, because guess what? The decision that's going to be made, and I'm going to draw another line. So here's today, 28th Feb. We got to get to, as Tom mentioned a minute ago, there's a March 13th date. We'll just take the earlier one. And that's a wall that we hit. And at that point, they make a decision. And you've got 12 months to perform, meet the requirements of the contract that we're going to sign when we say we want to do it. And then you can start construction anytime once the requirements, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. I'm going to divide this into fourths. So we got 12 months to perform, or at least get it. And we understand also from the due diligence that Tom and I and Jay have been doing, that if you miss that window, that's not curtains. There's opportunities to ask for extensions, because you could have, I've been the program manager on many multi-million-dollar programs, government side. Nothing ever goes the way you think it's going to go. And all you that have a business know that. The minute you have a plan, you step out the door, it's only as good as when you stepped out the door and then you react and you change the plan. So, that gives now costs. So let's talk about that a second. Somebody mentioned HughesNet, and you're right, it is unreliable. It's because weather impacts it. The Elon Musk thing is down the road, and so I asked him about competition in the future. And he says, the good thing is you're going to need towers anyway. And so the good news is fiber is not going to go away. And oh, by the way, CCOM is a fiber company too. So okay, there's another plus. They'll stay viable. But he did point out something that we all know, and that is by the time Elon Musk and everybody comes around, and maybe you can get into Ann Wilson's place with a satellite that looks straight down into her and have it be reliable. Just so you understand, that technology is there, but the process of launching all the satellites and bringing it out, just like they did when they launched GPS satellites a long time ago, made it possible. But the technology that evolved is to be able to use low Earth orbiting satellites, not geosynchronous, so the power is better, you get more done. And then the trick is to hand them off, because as that satellite moves, it has to move faster. At geo, it's moving as fast as the Earth is turning. Down here, it has to fly around faster, so it takes 90 minutes to circle the Earth and be right over that spot of the Earth again. So you need more satellites to hand over the data to the next guy so you don't lose it. Well, that's going to have some problems, you know. So we need something now. We want to be reliable. So it looks like maybe we've got a process in place, so that makes me a little more comfortable. The next thing I asked him was cost. Now, let's talk about it. What are the issues? And so he stepped through his contract with me, proposal, on the issues that have to be done. So he said, here it is, co-locate at an affordable rate. He doesn't really want to co-locate with Hilltop. Hilltop doesn't really want to co-locate with him. There's two reasons. One is actually technical, physical. He has to be assured he has space on the tower to separate his radios, horns, antennas from Hilltop's. If you don't, you get interference and you get worse service than you do now, because at certain times the Hilltop customers will be drawn on it very quickly, and that'll interfere with the signal to CCOM. So you've got to do that. Well, good news, Charles and his guys have planned a 100-foot tower to accommodate that. So he needs about 10 to 20 feet of spacing. So now he's down at 80 feet, or first come, first served, maybe he gets to the top of the tower. That's good. The other issue, just like your neighbor, if you're in an HOA, you got to get along, and you got maintenance problems. Who caused the outage? It could have been a lightning strike that fried a CCOM antenna that fries hillside, and so they get arguing with each other, and then you got to deal with that. Well, guess who has to broker that? It would probably have to be. They're going to be looking at Custer County, because you boys build them a tower, and somebody's got to be in charge, and we got to come up with a management process that we haven't got yet. Doesn't mean we won't. So that's the first thing, co-location. Secondly is unrestricted access to those tower foundations and the right-of-ways into them. That is an issue, but that's a requirement on both companies. So and somebody brought it up in our workshop, Charles answered it, there is a tower that's in existence somewhere. The landowner gave him access, but he said you can only backpack in. I'm going to let you put a road in here. That brings up a problem. You got to build a road to build a tower. So there's going to be issues with landowners that we haven't gotten to yet. I think and you can correct me anytime, Charles, you guys have worked with landowners, some. You got a feel for it, but there is no commitment for any right-of-way or a place to put these towers. They have locations, the optimum locations, which will give you a good footprint. And you want to get people around these. In some cases, these towers overlap and some good coverage. But you got to have the access. So in this 12-month period, we have to work those issues out. We have to get on the ground. We have to go out there. And then we got to make a landowner happy. Now, I do know that the proposal that we have before us that we're going to own as the county says that we will have enough money, hopefully, to buy the ground. Is that correct, Charles? To
negotiate. I mean,
buy, lease,
that could
donate.
be anywhere from
To negotiate.
to us to buy it.
But we do have the money. If somebody wanted to sell a little piece of ground and make that their permanent tower, although you got to look at it from a landowner's point of view, you have issues. Who in here wants a 100-foot tower with inside of their picture window looking at Horn Peak? Huh? You're going to pull that hand down quick.
Can't we move it to the backyard?
Yeah, see?
Put it in my backyard.
For enough money.
Yeah, for enough. Well, yeah, anybody can be bought, maybe. But guess why the towers are short the way they are now? Has anybody driven up the Black Canyon out of Colorado Springs to Parker? And there was a big, tall 100-foot tower went up, and you could see it. In the land, all the people that were buying their houses in Black Forest complained, and guess what they did? They planted branches on the tower. Now you can't do that now, but that's what and so they hit it, made it look like a real ugly tree, and they were happier with that. So we have to deal with people now. What that would cause, and Charles and the group had pointed this out, it may need to be renegotiated. So we're going to move a tower somewhere potentially to somebody else or behind the old boy's barn, or the hill, so he can't see the tower. And then he'll have to decide whether he wants to negotiate a retirement fund for life, $1,000 a month for the ground or not.
We'll move it if that's the...
Well, see, he points it out. Trouble with that is that moves us along this timeline. We have 12 months.
12 months, in all truthfulness.
Okay.
But small point.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I haven't seen anything, and maybe you all have had discussions with DOLA, but they generally relate to what we think, and at least our Elphamar money would give us a completion in December of 2019.
Okay. We did that diligence too, and actually know that it is a 12-month window. They're willing to move it, and in fact, you can start here and you go out X months to finish it. And the goal to get it done it's 1 January of 2019. That's a goal. We may not get there. This could slip, and I know that DOLA will work with us, because if we've gotten along and it's got one landowner that's holding out, and the grant money is gone. Now, you got to remember that grant money is only for fixed stuff. Once we buy the ground, that's over with. If we have to cut a lease, that's an issue with the county, because we're committed then at that point to hope that the towers are generating enough revenue, not just to do the O&M on the road, but to pay the bills, to pay for the lease, to keep the service going. And you have to bet on the come that service provider will be in business to pay the lease. So that brings up point number 2. Well, before I get into that point, is along with the towers, that means you want more customers on there, more service providers. The initial cut was, well, you only need 2, and if the 2 that are on the tower pay $300, that's where the number came from a while ago. I think Linda brought it up. Let's say there's a range. They got $300 to $400 each for the tower. That's for each tower, so you multiply that out, and it's like $7,000, between the 2 companies a year. So when I mentioned that to them, and also we had heard there was probably all they needed were 6 subscribers to make that pay off or something. Here's the real deal. There's currently, like I mentioned, there's 1,000 subscribers that CCOM currently has. What they need to understand, they haven't got all the data yet. I think Charles and the guys, we're going to make sure that happens next. It's not about projected residential addresses that could be out in the boonies, and nobody's there yet, hadn't sold it, the subdivision. It's actually what they care about is what are actual residences that exist today. In order to pay that rent, he told me that they need to be assured that they can go up around each tower, and whatever the population density is, be assured that there's 100 subscribers that they can go after, meaning new business. Or it can also mean they have towers that might be duplicative, and they can actually take their towers down and take advantage of this tower, save some money, and move ahead. That could mean that they could buy out Hilltop's right to be on the tower if they wanted to try to do that, but he didn't think that was going to be feasible, because he really balked and pushed back at the $300 figure. So that's an issue that I flagged that has to be negotiated with these guys in order for them to be wanting to be on our tower. Now, there are ways to mitigate that. One is, like I mentioned, let's see how much money they can save with where they actually are. Let's let them understand what the footprint is of the actual residents that are underneath these towers. And then maybe that's enough. Or build the towers big enough to handle the wind load. And they were concerned about this. It's not just building a tower and hiring a tower dude to go build some towers. It's building the right design in order to handle the wind loads when you start hanging all the horns on the tower to handle other providers like AT&T, cell phone service, 3 or 4 of those, the loads increase, and you worry about the tower standing. That causes the cost of the tower to go up. Now, I know that the Colorado Economic Development Group did a lot of good. You want to take a break?
Yeah, how much longer do you?
I'm going to be just a few minutes, and that's the reason I really think this is important, because when we ask you, because it could come down to a point where we're going to need your help, and the fundraising or taxes or whatever would be not necessary. Now, I'm not saying that's the case.
Don't throw that out.
I'm not going to throw that out. So, but my point is, you need to understand the business plan so that you understand what we're using to make our decisions. Okay? So let's come back. You want to take 5 minutes?
Yeah, when you're done, we'll move forward. Yeah.
Oh, you want to wait till I'm done?
Finish, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'll finish that up. So yeah, I wasn't trying. That was just an offhanded comment. Don't be worried about it. So we have to negotiate that in this time frame and get it to be so we can start building and draw on the money from DOLA. They got to know we can do that, and then the adequate building space on the ground, and that's accounted for in the plan for their equipment, shacks to hang their radio gear in. And if we get more, then that's more. And they did assure me that AT&T, when they talked to them, brings their own shack with them. They're not gonna. That's not an issue. They'll make the business decision to locate on the tower and not charge us to do that. And then they prefer public power, and that's the case here. We're going to get Sangre de Cristo to provide power, except out there in the boonies, and also that means backup power. We're going to be responsible to maintain the power generators in case the wind is gone, the sun doesn't shine, and they need to, or lightning takes out their system to back up the power with propane in a generator. So those are issues that we have to overcome. The lease terms, contract longevity. They will not sign a contract for 10, 20 years. They will sign one for 5 or 3 usually, with an option to renew it, depending on the business that they've got and whether they can continue to operate. And so we have to be able to deal, and so in the planning that we commissioners will have to do is figure out how, in the event they walk away, they're not obligated to stay after the 5 years, and maybe we can write into their contract that there'll be a penalty if they walk away early or whatever in their contract because of technology that might come up during that time, and in which case we own the towers. And I know we have, that's what DOLA is expecting. Those are our towers. They expect us to keep them for 10 years, and then we can do whatever we want with them. Apparently, Tom, you can address that later. And then the number of potential subscribers. This is where we really need your help, is if we do this, the reputation has to be overcome. If CCOM's going to be the only provider, and or whoever else we get, because it'll be up to us to help overcome what their issues are. That doesn't mean just complain. It means you volunteered to help them or help us do our thing. And then future competition. It is a reality. Satellites are going to compete today. The satellites are being used today. It's not that good. In the future, it might be. The weather impacts things, etc. All those things come up, and then so with your help, we're going to need it. So that's what is going through my mind, is the diligence that this board has been doing with all of us to make sure that we have you understand what's going to go on in our minds as we decide how to go through this 12-month window. I would propose that we set up a Custer County Board of Commissioner point of contact. We would have meetings quarterly to make sure we're on track. We'd have meetings monthly with the guys that are actually executing the process of getting there with these issues. And then, of course, our O&M job that we're going to have to worry about contracts in the future to make sure we get crews out there to keep them going. So that's my comments to start.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm going to ask the commissioners here in a minute if they are okay with taking a 5-minute break. I want to tell you that we will continue with comments from or discussion from the Board of Commissioners about this item. And then I, as the chair, am going to allow Mr. Bogle an opportunity to respond before we vote. He was gracious enough to sit there quietly while the audience had an opportunity to discuss, and I want to honor that and give him an opportunity. He is probably more vested in this project than anybody in the county, so that may be twisting our policy a little bit, but I will make that executive decision. So with no objections, gentlemen, we'll stand in recess for 5 minutes. County Commissioner meeting will come back to order. Thank you for allowing us to take a few minutes for a break. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. As I indicated, I will allow Mr. Bogle an opportunity, if he so chooses, to have comments, and you're welcome to do that now, or would you want to wait and respond to whatever else is said? It's up to you, right?
I very seldom give up an opportunity to talk. So. I'll give you all one small pitch that we presented at public meetings when we were prepared for Ride to the Rockies, when we were talking about the Main Street Wi-Fi. There was rumors then that Mullen and I were getting rich and we were going to take that $50,000 and we were going to leave the county. My wife will confirm that our half of $50,000 would not go very far, and we're still here. So Dale had 35, 40 years in the IT business. He did the IT systems at LAX and San Francisco Airport. He's a subject matter expert. My background, I'm a mechanical engineer. I built airplanes. But the last 6 years, I've picked up a lot of these little things about broadband. The point is that we have managed programs and intend to help the county to manage this program. And we're confident that it can be done as we propose it. Yes, there's a lot of details, but then we have not had funds until we get grant monies to work these details and really to sub a lot of it out. You know, there's a couple of 3 of us that work it here in the county. We can't do it, but we can function as a liaison and a connection between the county commissioners, because they've got a lot of other things to do, and with appropriate professionals. For the most part, I devil's in the details, but what Commissioner Kenda indicated is reasonably accurate, other than Mike Saunders, DD Wireless, initially established the wireless system that we've got here in the county. And then DD Wireless, or CCOM bought them out about 1.5 years ago. They've had growing pains. I can't make excuses for that. But they bought DD Wireless. The next year they bought the WISP that supports the Wetmore and Florence area. But when they bought DD Wireless initially, some of us were really concerned, because we had looked at CCOM's ads. They gave poorer service than what we had under DD Wireless. Their rates were as much, if not higher. Their offerings were lower, and we had real concern that we were going to lose something. Dale and I both had meetings with John Saunders, the Chief Operating Officer, during Mountain Connect. We had a 3.5-hour dinner with them, and we left feeling that it was good for the county, and it was probably good business for them too, because obviously they knew what they were getting, because they had already acquired a number of companies in their growth. They had a whole lot deeper pockets than Mike Saunders did. I mean, he had his retirement and everything else tied up into it. So, you know, we are where we are. Hilltop and CCOM are our 2 providers now. We have had informal communications with other companies that are looking at coming into the valley for service. In all truthfulness, we will tell them what the facts are. It'd be quite a challenge for somebody to move in here as a third provider. We think, based on the history we've had in other places, that 2 WISP providers are adequate for our area so that they can be sufficiently healthy. Somebody comes in, who knows? It's their business. What we're looking at doing is to provide an infrastructure, a tower, and utilities for these companies where their business plans will not support $2 million worth of tower. We've got 2 reports that are about that thick that, it's a matter of public record, and if you want to sit down over a cup of coffee, we'll go with you at excruciating detail if you can stand it. But I suggest to you, the public, and you, the commissioners, we're capable, we're motivated, and we hope that you get to a point where you trust what we say when we make a recommendation to you. And we realize we've still got some way to go on that. But you all have got your load with Road and Bridge and all the rest of the county functions, and we intend to support you responsibly as a subset in the committee to the county.
Thank you.
That's all
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Thank you for, it's really not even reasonable for me to sit here and say thank you for all your work, because I have no idea. But believe me, the spirit is there that we appreciate the time and energy, finances, family sacrifices that you guys have made.
Wouldn't be here without you guys.
That's why I said that. Don't think for a minute I don't know she's in this room. I appreciate that. I have some comments. Mr. Prince, I would defer to you, sir, if you care to make any comments.
I would, but I promise you it won't go on forever.
Oh, no, I didn't go on forever.
Mean that as a negative.
He meant that in a good way.
I don't want y'all to drone out on us. I appreciate the work, Mr. Canada, that you have done, the background that you gave us, and I too have done a lot of that work. And I agree that you're very accurate, and I appreciate the audience understanding some of the infrastructure that's going to be necessary and how the process works. Quickly, I'm going to talk about my responsibility to this county, and this county is, of course, you. When I ran for office, and I still maintain this, one of the things that I promised that I would do if I could was to help economic development with this county with a 0 or minimal footprint. I do not want Walmart and all that stuff that we're worried about. But if you want your roads fixed, if you want services from the county, we need money. We need money. Most of the money, all the money we get now is tax money. We spend your money to service you. And that goes into number 2. We are a service provider. The county. We are not a business. This is not a business decision. I don't care if it's going to end up costing this county $3,000 a month, which it will not, I believe. But that's the total risk we're looking at. A third of a person, okay, to provide a service to this county. Let me dovetail that back to the economic development. It is low or no economic footprint to have someone, as the gentleman, I don't see him now, works from his home. This is what we want. I want you to work from your home. I don't want you to move to San Francisco, as we have at least one resident I spoke to recently. She works here because she has broadband. She can have her meetings and go on and on. So I want her here because whether I get a tax from her broadband business or not, I don't care. I know she's going to go to a grocery store, a gas station. She's going to spend her money in this county. So I think an excellent opportunity for low impact, low footprint economic development is providing broadband. Here's where I took an oath to you. I raised my hand and I swore that I would try and protect the health and the safety of the people of Custer County. And I take that extremely seriously. this is really important. These towers, aside from the economic impact that we could have, will support FirstNet, will support, now whether it happens or not, I mean, a lot of this is, we're going to do our best to have it happen. Additional cell companies or cell areas that could be put on the towers, so that if you are in an emergency in an area where there is no cell service today and you need to dial 911, I want to know that our sheriff back there is going to go, how can I help you? What do you need? What services can we provide? That's an oath I took to you. I take it seriously. And that's why I think 6 towers are extremely important. The risk to the county is so minimal, cost-wise, is so minimal. The rewards could be so great. I will tell you now, I'm not on the fence. I am so for this project. I feel we need to do this. So you'll see me raise my hand when the vote comes in favor. I want to commend our Economic Development Corporation for tremendous amount of hours they've put in of their own time and money, and Mrs. Bogle, I agree. But seriously, this county needs to move forward, and it would be a travesty to let a wonderful opportunity like this to just slip away because we choose not to do it. And that's just my opinion, and I'll pass it on. I hope that was succinct enough.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I'd like to share some comments that I have with this group and with my fellow commissioners. I beg your pardon if, one, they are a duplicate to some degree of something that's already been said here. I will try to, if it has been, I'll try to just go by that, but I may not. I have some things written down that I just want to share with you, and then we can certainly move forward. I would like everybody to understand. I know that these commissioners understand, so I'm not going to include them. I'm not going to point to them and say, I hope you guys understand this, because I know that they do. This grant is for 6 towers only. That is a part of this broadband thing. And broadband is nothing but a defined speed of internet access for the end user. That's all it is. So I want everybody to understand that the grant we're talking about is for the towers. It has nothing to do with any internet service being provided here, except being a carrot that we can dangle out there and say, we have done our part, now you do your part. And I would defer to Mr. Bogle to say, hold on a minute, let me, you're welcome to do that, sir, because I don't want to make ignorant statements.
Like we've said, if we can't have contracts with WISP and
right.
to the such that it's a good deal for the county, then we just won't build the towers.
Exactly. So this grant deals with the towers. Anything after the construction of those towers is incumbent upon the Board of County Commissioners, we hope with the assistance of the Economic Development Corporation or another entity similar to that. So I think that needs to be said. The EDA grant, the Economic Development Agency grant, is incumbent upon this DOLA grant. Without the DOLA grant, the EDA grant goes away. We're talking about 2 different grants, $1 million apiece, plus some matching funds, of which El Pomar would be about a 20% player in the matching funds thing. I want you guys to understand and know this. I believe my 2 fellow commissioners have been contacted by many people in this county on both sides of the fence. So I hope you don't think that we're sitting here in a glass bubble bringing forth our personal agenda to this thing. That is not the case for me. I will not speak for these 2 gentlemen. There, and Commissioner Kanda addressed this, there are, for lack of a better term, altitude layers on these towers. Not everybody's going to get to put their radios and equipment on the top 20 feet. And we're going to be limited, if we have these towers, by how many layers are going to be available. Nobody's going to want to be on the 0 to 20 foot layer, I can tell you that. So that's the other thing. these towers would have limitations to them. We don't have any way around that. DOLA will have in their final contract a 10-year commitment, a 10-year ownership commitment by the county for these towers. So they have to remain an asset of the county for a minimum of 10 years, regardless of what happens. Doesn't mean we have to use them, but we have to retain ownership. We cannot turn around and sell those towers for scrap iron in the worst case scenario. In the second year we own them, that will be in a contract. I know you guys know this. Please don't think I'm talking down to you. This county is not mandated by the state legislature to provide internet service to anyone. We are not it is not a utility, and we are not a internet provider. I've had people say, you have to do this. This is your responsibility. I'm not saying anybody in this room told me that, but I've had many table pounding conversations and heard statements that just are not true. We're not legally obligated to provide internet service to anyone. As Commissioner Kanda pointed out, the grant that we have submitted to DOLA and subsequently to the EDA is based on the number of addresses in this county. It is not based on the number of residences nor the population in those residences. We have 6,603 addresses that we have submitted in our grant to the county.
To the state.
I'm sorry, to the state, to DOLA. That was the number reported to DOLA in the grant. I'm not going to argue that. That's not the point. I did check with the IT department, and they have identified that we have 3,956 residences in this county. Obviously, those could be vacant residences, those could be part-time residences, those could be full-time residents. I also want to say it's not true with DOLA, because it is true that DOLA is funded by the state of Colorado through the state legislature. But when you hear that grants are spending taxpayers' money, that is not always a true statement. A lot of grants are funded by private philanthropic people. In this case, it is money that has been earmarked by the state legislator for DOLA specifically. It doesn't matter when we're talking about terrestrial services. It doesn't matter how high that tower is, reasonably speaking. Any internet is going to be line of sight. It's LOS. So if that signal cannot hit your receiver, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get internet. So we're not going over and down and around and in. It is a line of sight. As you probably well know, broadband is no different than high-speed internet. If we can't communicate from point A to point B, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get internet. I spoke with Christy Doon, the regional director for DOLA. We will be placed on a clock that we will have 12 months to come under contract with DOLA. If we cannot do that, if we cannot meet those contractual things with DOLA, they will withhold that funding. So we need to be aware of that. And this is not news, obviously, to Mr. Bogle and the Development Corporation. This whole grant is based on a reimbursement process. We're not going to get any money from DOLA until we expend dollars. I'm not trying to cry wolf, but if we get a contract to buy these towers, we will buy the towers, and then we'll go to DOLA for our money. Correct statement, sir?
Incrementally.
Yes, as we go along. I just picked towers as an example. If we bought the fencing material to fence, we're going to pay for that out of county coffers. That has never been mentioned in any meeting that I've been in attendance to since this whole thing came to the forefront. We have to front this, correct?
There's a way of accommodating.
Okay, I'm not saying there isn't, but I believe the facts are we have to expend it.
We have to give time and energy to go after
And
people to
then-
get right-of-ways and all the things
Yeah,
Tom's mentioned.
but my point was, we have to expend the dollars, then we get reimbursed. DOLA is not gonna write us $1 million check and we'll put it in an account for the county. In some form, every one of these towers will have to have backup generation. That's part of the whole package. And so the county will not only own these towers, it will own whatever that backup generation system looks like.
And the buildings.
We talked about it the other day in our workshop. These 6 towers, I don't want to overstate this, I don't want to be dramatic, but I believe, and Mr. Bogle agreed, will have 0 impact on Wetmore. We will not have a signal from any of these 6 towers, so that boils down to we're looking at a $2 million grant that will not affect the residents in Wetmore.
And neither will it significantly affect the citizens of West Cliff or Silver Cliff.
Correct, and would you elaborate on that? Why not?
Well, the analysis really for support in the 2 towns, it comes down to that's a reasonable expense, cost of doing business for Seacom and Hilltop, where they're part. They can put their antennas. There are issues with coverage, just like the trees. A lot of trees in the 2 towns, but it's identified that there's a profit motive for the WISP to facilitate the wireless support of the 2 towns, such as it is. So we concentrated on the remote parts of the county for these 6 towers. The tower, we may have a 10-year deal. The tower's design life will be at least 20 years. And there's scheduled maintenances in the industry to assure that they maintain their structural integrity and stuff like that. So, and then we have other subsequent options that can accommodate and have potential of supporting the 2 towns. So this is the next step, if approved, towards about a 3-step situation that could ultimately put fiber in the 2 towns.
Okay.
Not in the county.
I need to say this to you. You might think, whatever, Flower. But it's in response to some communications that I've had. I'm a personal friend of Mike Sanders and have been since him and Elaine and their family moved here. I had their students in my class. I will tell you today publicly and on record that I have no personal, financial, or other investment, never have had with DD Wireless, other than the fact that I was a friend of Mike Sanders. I will tell you as a part of public disclosure that DD Wireless came to me and asked if I would personally, in my home, assist their company in doing some welding and building some brackets. Now, we're talking about in the early days of DD Wireless. And Mike Sanders said to me, if you will do this, because I don't know anybody else, and I can't afford to pay anybody else, because I don't even know if what I'm going to ask you to do will work, will you do an experimental, will you help us build some brackets? We got to figure out a way to hang these radios on these towers. He said, if you will do that, I will provide you free internet. I said, you got yourself a deal. Truly, folks, that's the limit of my relationship with DD Wireless. DD Wireless did not sell out. They sold part of their company to Seacom. DD Wireless still exists in some form, but I can assure you today that I have no personal investment and no personal dog in this fight, other than being the chairman of the commission. I have been accused of being a monger about this whole project, and that's fine. That comes with the territory. I get that. doesn't mean that it's true because somebody's got their finger in my face saying that I don't care about economic development in this county. That is not the truth. I have said earlier, and I'll say it again, I felt it was my obligation to do due diligence and ask as many questions as I could. I've had this conversation with Mr. Bogle. A lot of those questions had a very negative connotation to them. That was not by intent, more by design, in my opinion. When you start asking somebody a lot of questions, the first thing they're going to think is, you're against me. I have never said I am against broadband. So I've been quoted as saying that many times, but that simply is not the truth. Mr. Sanders came to me and said, Flower, you know everybody, this was back a ways, it's not true today, you know everybody in this county. You have got to find me a place that I can shoot a signal into this valley. I said, that's not a problem, Mike. I said, I could almost guarantee you right now that I can make that happen without talking to the landowner. But I said, we're going to go talk to her. And you probably know I'm talking about Arlie Riggs. When that wind generator tower above her stock tank was sitting there for probably, I know, 30 years with not a thing on it, and you should go by there and look at it now. It is absolutely loaded, and that is a good thing. And they told Arlie Riggs the same thing. If you would let us put a radio on there, we'll give you free internet. And that's what they did. And believe it or not, CCOM honored that. They honored it with me. Because Mike said, I'm not selling this company unless you honor the commitments that I've made. And there's other people in this office, or in this room that have that same thing going on. Does that mean I got perfect internet? No. I've never met anybody connected directly with CCOM. My wife has had dealings with them, but I have not. I've been accused of being in bed with CCOM, and I'm just telling you that is not the truth. So the other closing remark I'll make is that I was told when I started campaigning to be a commissioner that, Flower, you're going to get, you will not ever please everyone. And I know we've all heard that. You probably said that a few times. I realize that. And I would only ask that the citizens of this county, you can get as upset as you want if I vote different than you believe. I will respect you for that as long as you would consider saying that I did not vote for something out of ignorance. It may not agree with you. And if you can say that to me, then I would encourage you to say, I do not believe you researched this. I don't think you know as much as you could. I don't know as much as there is available about broadband. But I believe I've made a due diligence in trying to educate myself so that when I vote today, it will be out of an educated position of what I think is best for this county. Any further debate, discussion, gentlemen? Okay.
I would like to say one last thing.
Okay, hold on. We'll go through the process. Mr. Prince has called for the question. Is there a second? Believe it or not, that motion does require a second to call for the question, which, if you don't know that, calling for the question, if it passes by this board, ends all debate, and we'll proceed to vote immediately. Motion dies for lack of a second. Further debate.
The only thing I wanted to point out is, the good news is, almost all concerns that we've had since November the 1st when we got involved with things have been allayed mostly by facts that there'll be insurance on these towers, we're not going to be obligated to build a new one, those kinds of things. The only issues that we have are we've got to get the right-of-ways, we've got to afford the land, and we've got to be able to get the customers to get the maintenance on there so that we're not pulling out of the county coffers to do this. There are outs to this in that one-year process, the DOLA process. It's a good thing they don't give us $1 million up front. Because if it gets to the point, we're not going to squander the potential of using your money and continue. We can cut and run at any of those points. If CCOM and Hilltop back out because of whatever reason, economically or profit motivated, then they can do that. So there is that potential in that 12-month period of time you may not get the service, because we will be adjourning another board, and we will make a decision whether we're going to continue to waste money or go into the coffers if we have to get the lease on the place and get the O&M covered, and hopefully, or work the customers to get it. So that's what I wanted to make sure, because you've got to understand that. Just because it's a conditional, if you want to look at it that way for it. It's provisional. It's the next phase we're voting for to go into.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have consulted with Mr. Prince. Obviously, he called the question, it didn't move forward, but he has indicated to me he does not have anything further to say. And I wanted to clarify that because I have told this group that before we do vote, you would have an opportunity, if you so choose, don't feel like you have to, but I would ask you as a group, if you are in favor of this board moving forward and voting to represent this county in Golden on March 13th or 14th, to move forward with the purchase of these, or the grant to purchase these towers, please raise your hand. Okay, good, thank you. Oh, we can count if you want. I don't need it. It's a straw poll for me, so I'm looking. Okay, this was in favor of, right? Was there? Because I saw somebody else go.
Go ahead, raise your hands again.
So if you're in favor, indicate that to us, please. Okay, good.
There's 15,
right.
16.
And if you're in the room and you're opposed to the county moving forward with a grant to buy these towers, would you raise your hand? Okay, all right, thank you.
Can I make a comment? I said I wasn't, but
Yeah,
just
that's fine.
for the straw poll.
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen this happen multiple times in the county where the audience is, I don't want to say stacked. That's true. But I don't know a better word. So the straw poll is important, but I don't believe
It's not
any
decisive.
straw poll. I don't believe any straw poll or any small audience represents the entire county. So even though this straw poll was overwhelmingly in favor of it, that does not mean that's what the county is. Okay? I just wanted to make that comment because it's very important.
Yeah. And that straw poll was just that, a poll to poll the people in this room, and that's what we wanted to see. So your point is well taken.
Yeah, you're right. In fact, the county drove our diligence. We know what our constituency wanted, or we wouldn't have wasted our time and yours doing what we've just gone through in the process in the last 3 months.
I would defer to Mr. Bogle one more time because I know this gentleman has a vested interest. Any closing comments or remarks, sir, prior to us voting?
If you want to keep, I don't want to sound flippant on this. I'm glad we're to this point. Obviously, a positive or a negative vote have ramifications in both directions. It's going to be a whole lot of work for a lot of us over the performance period of this. It already has been, but we're certainly willing and able to respond appropriate to whether it's a positive vote or a negative vote.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Good comment. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Marilyn Stodola, and I serve as a secretary for the Custer County Economic Development Corporation. I have watched these gentlemen spend the last 2 years of their lives focused on the majority of their time on this, between their expertise. And right now we're kind of in a perfect storm. We have their expertise and we have the opportunity of funds. Those two things rarely come together. If we pass up this opportunity, we may not have it again for a very long time.
Thank you. Any further discussion for the board? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of endorsing and approving the grant cycle to continue on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners to represent the county at the hearing in March 13th or on March 13th or 14th in Golden, say aye.
Aye. I will vote for it, recognizing that it is into the next phase, that, and in which case there is always that opportunity to do the right thing and weigh the data at hand, and it could stop it at that point. But I'm voting to proceed.
So when I vote, I vote I vote as aye as well. Motion carried. Thank you. I move that we, as a board, select Mr. Bogle as our spokesman to represent us at the hearing in Golden. I have not had this discussion with him because obviously this is subsequent to a vote today. He can certainly decline if he so chooses.
He's got his surfboard headed up.
But that is my motion to appoint him to represent us, and I certainly will be a board representation at that meeting, and I think Mr. Prince has indicated that as well. So the motion would be to appoint Mr. Bogle to be our spokesman.
Before it's seconded, can I make a friendly suggestion
Sure,
to that?
absolutely.
Either Charles or Dale, either one or both, for your, to this, the spokesman, since both of them put their heart and soul into this to this point, I think they're equally.
Okay, we're diverting a little from parliamentary procedure, but let me ask you, sir, would you be available and willing to do that?
I will make myself available.
I think it's important that everybody understands that what he's got to do is important. It's not a given they're going to give us this money.
No.
That is not assured.
We don't even have a second, sir. And I know. I'm just trying to.
I'm
You'll
just
have
saying
an
it's
opportunity.
important. Okay.
There's no reason to go further if Mr. Bogle says I cannot be there because I'm out of the country. That's
I
where I'm
second
getting.
the motion.
Thank you, sir. It has been moved and seconded to appoint Mr. Bogle as the county spokesman at the hearing on March 13th and 14th. Obviously, there will be commissioners there representing this county. Further discussion. I had told Ms. Doon that I will contact her by phone today to let her know that. I will do that if it's okay with you, sir, if we vote that way. But I wanted to make sure I'm not crowding you into a corner that you couldn't.
No, I've done my Hawaii trip for this winter.
Well, if I thought another surfing expedition was going to stand in the way. Further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of appointing Mr. Bogle as our spokesman at the hearing on March 13th and 14th, say aye. 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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Let me say that I hope that this group here, because you took the time to be here, I hope that you understand we are now all in. There is no reservations from this point forward. You have my word on that, and I believe you could probably take our nods that we meant that vote very sincerely. So let me get back on track. We are scheduled to have a staff meeting. Gentlemen, with your permission, I would like to go into recess for a few minutes and then we will take back up.
Okay, but before you do that, Tom,
Yes,
because
certainly.
we're going to have comments at the end of this. I want these guys are going to bail out of here. There's a couple points to make. You saw sausage being made. You saw the reason Tom and I are here, and Jay, that you have to respect the process and procedures. You saw a vote go down in flames earlier for good reason. You know, we have to be disciplined in how we handle business, and things will go better and smoother in the future. Also on this, the broadband issue itself. If it hadn't been for the due diligence that was created by not only our newspapers in their arguments, our people calling us and doing the things that we needed to do, it made it possible to make the right decision. And use our expertise here to make that decision. So it's important for you not to go out of here thinking that we're a bunch of people that don't understand the issues. We need to do that, and we need to do it in a deliberate way. And I want to commend Tom for standing the ground that we had got him here for. It's why I elected him a chairman, to hammer that gavel.
Well, I appreciate that, Bill. Thank you. To me, we always have to come back on what is good for this county. It is not what is so-and-so is giving me the stink eye
Right.
from the back of the room. That, you know, it'll happen and it does happen, but it doesn't, yeah, I heard that, you stinker. You know, and this is a great thing about living in Custer County. I've known Elizabeth for years. I love her parents. I'm telling you, does not mean that we cannot disagree on things. And I hope that I'm just using Elizabeth as an example this morning. But you know, this should never erode our personal relationships and our trust and our belief that the process will work.
Amen.
That's my fervent prayer. I keep doing that. I keep saying, Lord, just let us move forward. The one thing I did not want to happen was for this thing to divide this county again. We do not need that. So, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord.
Amen.
Amen. Yes, ma'am. All right, let's go into about a 5 minute.
Okay, you guys are free to live your life now.
I'll shake your hand first.
Thank you.
Very tickled.
I'm assuming we are still live streaming, correct?
We're on.
Because this is part of the meeting. So the next item on the agenda is our staff meeting. I never have gotten my mind wrapped around how these are supposed to look or work, so I will open it up.
It's just a staff meeting. Okay, staff, who's first?
What do
I'll
you
go
need?
first.
Okay.
Yeah, go first. I will. Okay, so wouldn't it be to the benefit if you got department heads in here at the staff meeting, like the next staff meeting, the department heads would stay in the room and let the other people in the office come because they might have some concerns, because it's always been with the department heads.
Okay, it's a great question. I wondered it too. When we have staff meetings, let's define that from your perspective to us. What does that mean? Are we supposed to be meeting with some staff of the entire county? Should Wetmore be here? Should Road and Bridge be here? Should Landfill be here? I mean, I've got my opinions about that, but I'm asking you guys.
Generally, it's always been the people in this building.
Okay.
Well, no, because Rusty's come sometimes.
Sometimes he's in the building.
And Road and Bridge has come sometimes.
Right. My line of thinking is that anyone,
Right.
we obviously it's on the agenda, but this is the other thing that kind of gets me about this whole county system is we don't have a county email for everyone that we can. I mean, we do. Everybody has an email, but in my line of thinking, we should all have access to a tom@custercountygov.com.
Tom, I think, classic staffs are people that are department heads or heads of groups or divisions within a company or a government agency, and this is a government outfit. We've got underneath the commissioners people that directly report to us, but there are county staff or department heads that are parallel. I think a staff meeting, if we're going to involve the right people, ought to be all the elected officials and their designee for a particular meeting to discuss the issue. And I don't know that it should include boards and that kind. It shouldn't necessarily, unless there's because we have those separate reports separately.
I think it's in the IT office.
Okay.
All right.
That's my thought.
It doesn't make sense to me if we're going to have a staff meeting. For sure, the department heads of the entire county should be there,
Jackie, right?
I think I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I think.
Well, it sure doesn't sound like it.
I thought I just said I think that all of the department heads should be at our staff meetings.
Wouldn't it be like beneficial because instead of closing down our offices,
sure,
next staff meeting, Elizabeth gets to come over and
or your designee, we said.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think in the past, what Debbie always said is that the staff meeting was for staff. And the departments heads usually came, but she always would ask us, do you guys have anything you want to go and I'll stay
Issues
in
do
here?
bring
I think it just,
And
it
I've had staff that came in to talk about specific things.
So I think Elizabeth wants to come.
And I asked them today, staff meeting's going on, does anybody want to go? And they're going, no, we're fine.
Yes.
I really agree with Kelly.
I think if there are issues within an organization, that the staff could bring it to whoever's in charge and say, would you bring that to the meeting? However, understanding that potentially there could be something that maybe they don't, maybe the problem is with the supervisor. I think I would have no issue if
I don't
staff
either.
chose to come.
And actually, it's a good time for dialogue, and the reason some things can get ironed out in the staff meeting between different organizations or different departments. So it's a good thing to talk and hear each other.
I think when we first started, there was stuff going on with the building, for one thing, when they were putting in the windows and stuff. The commissioners had us come in to just tell everybody, this is what's going to be going on, just to let us know some of the things.
Right, and also, and I'm agreeing with you, and I hope I didn't interrupt you.
No,
We also talked about who's locking the front door.
Yeah,
We had a lot of
stuff.
issues that we needed to resolve, and we
Yeah.
have most of those resolved at this point. You know, I look at the staff meeting as in case we're missing something, because I don't know about the other two, but sometimes I'm off flittering around somewhere. I want to know what's going on, and I want to know if there's something I need to do to help you do your job better, because that is always my bottom line.
Not flirting around, he's on official county business.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's the way I would look at it. I'm assuming the process is probably going on now. I'm assuming department heads are saying there's staff meeting today. Do you want to go or not? If somebody said to me, Tom, how do you communicate to your county-wide staff that you're having a staff meeting? I'd say, I don't know, other than posting it on the agenda. In the courthouse, it's pretty easy, word of mouth, remind us, you know, hey, don't forget we have a staff meeting after the BOCC meeting. But Road and Bridge, landfill, Wetmore, Road and Bridge, because they're off-site, I don't know.
That'd be up to them to.
Do you
bring
think
them
the
in if
Road
they
and
want.
Bridge and Wetmore knew we were having a staff meeting today?
No.
They're not on, I send all the agendas to all the department heads, which includes like airport and all those people, which would be Gary and probably Barbie. Now, what they do with it.
Yeah, they can elect to bring up whoever they
But you
want.
don't send it specifically to Wetmore,
No.
just to the department head, which is
Right.
Gary. Okay.
And,
I'm okay with that.
and.
Yep, me too.
Also, it's on the agenda, the meeting schedule for the year.
Right.
It specifies
Yes.
when the staff meetings will be.
Donna, you were going to say
Yeah,
something?
everybody but the road and bridge guys and the landfill guys, with the exception of Rusty and Gary, have emails. But
Well-
they don't have a workstation at their locations to be able to
Right.
pull their emails, is why they don't have them.
See you after the meeting.
Yeah, and then that's the other thing. We get into this whole county thing. Is extension part, or they're not? Is human services part, or they're not? See, they all have email. I get that, but I'm saying that CusterCountyGov.com thing. Not that it's a big deal, but
I would suggest to kind of, because I think this is kind of not firm, maybe we, one of us, you should send it.
Brenda.
Send an email to the department heads stating that we're going to, you know when the staff meetings are, here's what we would like you to do. We would like you to confer with your staff, and if they can bring issues to you to bring to us, that's fine. If they have issues they don't feel comfortable dealing with their supervisor, they can come directly, so that Gary, for example, knows to tell the people down in Whitmore we're going to have it. I mean, I think we need to, it would be a good idea to remind our department heads what it is we're trying to accomplish in a staff meeting. So
yeah, I think too, along with that, Jay, that if a staff member has something they want to talk to the commissioners about that they're really not comfortable talking to their supervisors about, that's going down a whole nother rabbit trail. We're probably talking personnel issues or something, but
That's not gonna happen, is it?
No.
no, I wouldn't. I can't imagine one of your staff coming in here and raising all Billy about something without having talked to you, or saying, I don't feel comfortable in talking to my supervisor, even though they're sitting in the same room, and now I have this issue. I don't know. That's
Well, and live streams, gosh, that just adds
Yeah.
to it.
Nobody's gonna wanna come knowing that.
Yeah, so.
We're all gonna be on TV.
Well, should staff meetings be broadcast? I mean, that's a
Yeah,
fair
that's
question.
a great question too. You know,
I don't know why. This is not a county issue. This is a in-house
When
issue.
we started this, we did not even have the people from the papers here. It was just to talk about some of the issues, you know, stuff with the building, we're gonna be doing this, or whatever it was, but, or.
So that brings up a question. We're not going to be forced into making any decisions based on that, except internal policy procedures things, which doesn't matter. That wouldn't need a public comment. So
no, we could
don't
vote
need to
on
broadcast.
something still in this meeting, in this
Sure,
staff
on-
meeting.
on
We can
what it-
vote on things.
process.
But to me, the only other alternative
If we're gonna
then
do that,
would be to
broadcast.
schedule these as a workshop. The public's still invited. The only difference would be we wouldn't be voting on anything.
And
we
you'll have to
wouldn't be-
publish it 24 hours.
We wouldn't be live streaming.
I got a real problem with transparency by not inviting the public, the press, and anybody else. So I think we should make them as workshops in the future, post them, and invite anybody who
Wants
wants
to come.
Now, you always have the authority to say there'll be no comments during a workshop. You always have that authority from, other than the people who are invited. I mean, I'm talking about the public who comes in or the press. But for transparency, I think we should do nothing behind any
No,
closed
I
doors.
agree.
That's right.
And that's why I suggested workshop. I mean, that's the format the public would.
And I don't
would
think
be
we're going to get a
invited.
lot of people unless they want to hear Jackie specifically
Yeah.
to want to come in off the street.
In-
It happened.
yeah.
Could happen. Oh, Jackie's going to the meeting today.
Typically, in my professional experience, it was a staff meeting would have an agenda, and part of that agenda would always be, what are your concerns? So that's where I look at it is, what are your concerns? What are you having issues with? Okay, that to me should be a question asked during a commissioner or a.
Okay, so to move
staff
forward, I think you made the right, we've got the right thing now. So it sounds like we're going to get an agenda. Brenda's going to put it out there. We're going to have a staff meeting. It'll cover the pat things that you normally would see. I've seen it before, you know. Department X going to speak, Department Y, blah, 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 and the issues and then comments. And just let it go at that.
So if there's no issues, we won't meet.
No, we'll always meet.
Yeah, we'll always
We
meet.
will always
You can
meet.
choose to attend or not, but
You may.
because how would we know if there aren't any issues? See, we wouldn't know that necessarily.
Something might
So
be
the
drug out.
commissioners
What
will
might
always
happen,
hold a staff
Jackie, is if you don't have any issues, Brenda, not Laura, but I'm looking past that, and Brenda might, but Laura always has issues. But the point is, that would require some input from you, but it's a discussion, and it's just to see, maybe Tom and I and Jay have something that we've picked up, whatever, it's just a staff meeting.
Well, I would move that we move the staff meetings to a workshop format from this point forward.
Are we gonna vote on that?
Not if we don't get a second. Is there a second?
I second it!
We moved and
Let's get
seconded to, subsequent to today. We'll continue this meeting to today, but subsequent to today, we move our staff meetings to a workshop format immediately following the adjournment of the Board of County Commissioners meetings on those given days
That's
that are
right.
listed.
Public
Debate,
can decide to stay or not, then.
hearing no,
Can I-
yes,
Can
ma'am.
I comment?
Yes.
Can we, instead of doing it immediately following, can we set, I mean, a lot of times you do your workshops at 1 o'clock. Can we set a specific time so that
Maybe we'll have
everybody
lunch.
knows? So, because
Gotcha.
JD was headed down the stairs
Right.
at 11 o'clock, and I
Right.
said, no, we're.
Wait a minute, stop!
No.
And she said, don't bother going in there.
Yeah.
They're still ranting and raving.
So that they can plan a little better
Good
their
point.
I
day.
think your point is excellent. I would almost prefer not to do it on a day we have a BOCC.
I would too, actually.
Say, we're going to meet on
No,
a day when we don't have it at
I
9
agree with
o'clock. We will have a workshop, which will be a staff meeting, and that
That's a
way,
lot of meetings.
the only item we discuss is staff meeting, and that way we don't have to worry about things like disrupting JD 4 times to see, are they ready for me, are they not? I mean, I get that.
Well, I like that. The only problem is, Jay, I think we could even make it later in the afternoon to separate it. The problem I have is getting enough time, if we all, I want to do other things, other kinds of meetings, get out of the county and go, so if we commit to that, it would be a little hard. It's a little easier when we're all together on 4 times a month.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see us do it on the same day because we're here and we know we're going to be here. But man, it'd be nice to have a breather after a meeting like we just
Nice to
got
have
done
one.
with.
Yeah, get lunch, come back at 1 o'clock or 1:30 or whatever.
Could you guys live with 2 o'clock? That way, if our meeting did go till 12:30 on any given BOCC meeting, does it really matter? Can we do?
Is that gonna cause a problem with you inspecting a septic tank?
No, if it does, I'll just choose the septic over you.
I
what I
will add.
I don't know how we rate. That's right up there.
I will add to my motion then the time of 2 o'clock, a workshop.
What you meant.
You didn't
On the
really
last
mean
day of
it.
the
Can you do it
month.
first?
No, because I know personally I'm trying to get ready for that meeting
Yeah, it's
at
hard.
9 o'clock.
No, I wanted after.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happened.
So the motion would be to have our staff meetings moved to a workshop format starting at 2 o'clock on the appointed days that are already on the calendar, because everybody has that. Discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Bubis, did you have?
No, I was handled, thank you.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. So our next staff meeting will be a workshop. And we can work on that. I mean, to me, it would make sense as an agenda to go through every department.
When you're getting that sign,
Road and bridge, anything, landfill, anything, and we just hammer that out. And then other issues that arise or concerns from BOCC, concerns to the BOCC beyond your department, you know, that kind of thing. I just think that's reasonable and would give us some direction so we're not kind of randomly.
Can I also suggest, when I've done this in businesses, oftentimes the departments would set ahead of time, if they knew they had something specific they want to discuss, they could say, I want to be on the agenda and here's what I'd like to discuss. You know, people leaving early or whatever the issue is.
Okay, yeah, I think on our agenda, department meeting, department comments, whatever, and if you had something you wanted on the agenda right then, we could put it on there, if not bring it
Sure.
up. Yeah, it makes
Yeah,
sense
so-
to me, but
yeah.
the weird thing is, obviously, is you all have more experience, including Jay, than Bill and I do about how you have run your staff meetings or how you want them to be ran. If you want them to be ran a certain way, let's have that conversation, because we can do whatever we want. IT, Mr. Chuck? Nothing, no issues over there?
He's happy.
Okay.
Look at the sign.
Okay, some of that will be dealt in your department reports to the BOCC, I get that too, but, yes, sir.
I'd like to bring up one thing, and if everybody could take it back to their departments in this building. When we have a jury trial or courts in session and we have the break room door closed and a sign on it, please don't walk in. We had somebody walk in when the jury's trying to deliberate, and that person will end up in the judge's office, and we want to avoid that. So just please respect the sign on the door. I know it's a real problem because we get used to putting your lunch in the refrigerator. I try to let everybody know ahead of time that, like this last week, I said, hey, we're gonna have a 3-day jury trial, so that room is not gonna be available. We need to try to make other arrangements. You know, we're selling eggs and we can't get in the refrigerator to get the eggs to who's ever buying them. It's just gonna have to sit until after those hours. So if the sign's on there during our docket days, we have a sign on there to say attorneys only. They're not always in there, but they're coming in and out using that room. Their clients are in there, so we're cramped for space. We're trying to juggle as best we can. But in those circumstances, if you just be cognizant of the sign. If there's something in there you really need, let me know.
Go around and
then I can get in at the right time and get it for you. I'm happy to do that.
And we discussed this yesterday at our County Needs Assessment Committee meeting. Technically, that room is for court use.
Right.
We piggybacked onto it as our break room. So if we don't honor that, I can see them saying, yeah, we're just going to lock that door and that'll be the end of it. Yeah, that's the thing, so.
But we don't want to do that.
Right.
Because we seldom use it, and it's great for everybody to be able to.
But we just need to honor that when that's.
And we're used to using it, and it does get inconvenient when the court blocks it off, but just be cognizant of the sign on there, because if you walk in while a jury's deliberating, that could be cause for mistrial, and that person will get called in and ask, the judge is gonna ask them, why were you in there, who were you trying to talk to, what was said? And it's always, almost always, I've never seen it not be completely innocent.
Right.
But you're
It
going
could
to get
be.
put on the spot. Sure. And so.
That's well taken.
So I would appreciate that.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, so if you guys would carry that back to your departments, and do you guys have department meetings, or are we small enough where you can just say, hey, by the way, we talked about this? Do you formally meet, sit down, have conversations, or is that necessary?
We do.
You do? Okay.
I do once in a while. We
Okay.
don't do it.
We talk.
Not regularly, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you could just have a conversation, that's the beauty of having a few people in your office. Yeah.
Every day. We make rolls up every day.
Good.
Every day too, don't you?
Breaking money.
Are you guys, and I know it probably will sound like a loaded question, but we need to have this conversation. Are you okay as departments with our IT transition? Is that going okay for you? Are you having heartaches about that? Or so far I've heard nothing but positive things, but if it's a business item that we all need to have a discussion about, let's do that. We're good? Okay.
Just remember, Vern's the biggest guy in the room.
Yeah.
And he's sitting next to me, so I'm certainly not gonna say anything.
We can settle anything with an arm wrestling match.
And where are we at with the transition period financially, Donna? We're good there?
Yeah.
We're retaining Chuck? We're fine?
Yeah, we should be good. We could probably keep Chuck part-time through the whole year.
Okay. All right, good.
And we know Chuck wants to do it.
He's on call. He's on notice.
Look at that surprised look on his face.
And if we hired him on a retainer basis, the retainer part's free, we just pay him when, yeah. Good.
Does Chuck have a choice?
No. P&Z, anything wild and? No?
I'm good.
Good, okay. Yep,
We're writing this down.
yeah. JD, how's things upstairs?
Good. I got two things. One is just, well, you don't have to write this
Okay,
one
I
down.
just-
This one's just complimenting Ed.
Oh, okay.
You
Yeah.
guys hired Ed. I had never met him. Ed's doing a wonderful job
Good.
for upstairs anyhow.
Good,
That
good,
he
Oh,
did.
he's doing a wonderful
But
job every day.
You picked
Good.
the right guy in my opinion, and I just wanted to give him props. He's doing a
Good.
great job. Second thing is, and this
Yeah.
is minor because it's been going on for 2 years, I still have a door that needs fixed.
Okay.
Sorry.
I still have a door that needs to be fixed. It's been going on about 2 years, but, so I'm not expecting anything overnight.
Okay.
It's gonna take a while, but I just wanted to bring that up.
What's wrong with it?
Now, did,
What's the problem?
Well, I'd almost have to show you. Come upstairs and I'll
Is
show
it
you.
squeaked? Is it open?
No,
No,
it doesn't shut and open right.
right,
Okay.
and you, and I tried to get the word around, did you fill out a work order on that?
No, I
Okay.
need to. Well, I have in the past.
Okay, all right, but
I've
no,
filled
I'm
it
talking
out
about
2 or
since
3
Ed
times, but not since Ed.
since Ed come on the
Ed
job.
did look at it, and he
Okay.
said, this is probably over my pay grade.
Right.
This is probably gonna take a contractor.
And,
We've had 2 or 3 contractors look at it. I don't know where it's
Okay,
gone
I'll
since
tell-
then. So I can fill out another work order, give it to Ed if that.
I would ask you to do that, and then because we're trying to get this process put in place, if you don't know this, there are blank work forms
Right,
in the
I've got
mailbox right above Ed's mailbox, or below, I don't remember, but you can pull one of those out, fill it, and I've had this discussion with him, if you think it's over your pay grade, then we'll move forward, but without the paper
Yeah.
trail, that's all
Yeah,
I'm asking
okay.
for. So if you would do that, we'll move forward with it if there's money available.
Yeah.
If there's not, then we'll report that back to you.
Exactly, that's gonna
But-
be the issue, I
Yeah.
think. but-
Okay, good. Yeah, that's how we tried to set that whole thing up.
Okay.
So, perfect. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Mike, actually. We've talked about for a while now a active shooter thing, training. And fire drill, and my staff keeps saying, when are we gonna do it? When are we gonna do it? So do you
Well, we're
have
still trying
any?
to work with the fire department, you know, if you don't know, they just had a change of chiefs. So I'm probably on the 6th chief as far as getting some things done through here. I did have them come through and inspect the building. there's some things that need to be fixed just to bring it up to code as far as exits. One of the big problems we have in doing a fire drill is we have no fire alarms in this building. So, do we have somebody run through yelling fire, fire? Those are things that we're looking at.
We're live streaming.
Fortunately, we've got the intercom system on the phone.
You got smoke detectors though, right?
Yeah, there's
So there'll be a whining cry, and then people are
Right.
just suspected to yell.
And I've also coordinated with the past fire chief. We were going to do a fire extinguisher demonstration because they've got the equipment for that, and we'll have the staff come out in the parking lot. And we were kind of doing that weather permitting. So through the winter months, we kept juggling a day to pick for that. So those are things that are, I guess they're on the planning table.
Okay.
The active shooter is a little bit more, takes a little bit more coordination. I've got some evacuation plans that I've drawn up. Two different scenarios, one for bomb threat and one for a fire. And actually we'll have three because there'll be, what do we do with an active shooter? Do we shelter in place, which generally is going to be the rule.
Shelter and shoot in place. Huh?
Yeah. In this building, an active shooter would probably be in a lot of trouble because I think most everybody
Is armed.
If it's not on them, it's real close to the car.
Go ahead, Jay.
I wanted to ask this question came up, and I think it might have been before Tom and Bill joined the commission. We had discussed about asking people to leave firearms, not allowing firearms in the building other than authorized personnel like sheriff and those kind of people. Is that something we should revisit, or are you still comfortable with anybody walking in with a gun?
That topic has come up many times with previous boards, and
Right.
I think it came up more after I started here probably, so for the last 10 years. But the law doesn't allow it. If you own a private business, you can post no firearms. If it's a public building, the only way we can prevent firearms coming into this building is to have a manned metal detector at every entrance. That's why most of the courthouses have closed all of their entrances, and you can only get in the building one way, and that's how you get screened. You can still exit out all those doors for fire purposes. But the problem we have here is it's not against the law to carry.
Right.
And if you got to conceal carry, it can be concealed if it's
So you're okay if someone, stranger walks in with a big old...
I'm not okay with that anytime because for some reason it just bothers me a little bit to see somebody walking down the street carrying a gun, because the first thing that goes through my mind is if they had training in it. What is their
That's
weapon
what I'm
retention?
afraid.
I saw a guy down at one of the pharmacies in Canyon City, the gun strapped on his hip, and he's leaning over the counter, both elbows up there, and I looked over there and I said, I could have his gun away from him in 2 seconds and he wouldn't even know it. And so that's what goes through my mind. That concerns me. Somebody walks in here wearing a gun, they're perfectly legal to do it. But if I know they're in here, I'm probably going to follow them around a little bit, or just keep an eye on them through the camera or whatever. Generally, I know the person, so it's a comfort level you have to try to evaluate as it's happening. But to keep people out of this building, legally, we can't do it unless we have a manned metal detector at every entrance.
Really? I thought we could opt out on that, but I'll defer to your judgment.
Yeah, we even had input from the county attorney on it. We have done some research on it, and the Colorado concealed carry law and the open carry law allow that. Now, like I said, if it's a privately owned business,
I wonder how the library does that. They don't have a metal detector, and they have signs up that say no guns allowed.
yeah, and they can allow it. Now, it's up to them if they wanted to put a metal detector in there and have it manned to make sure that nobody's doing it. But if they see somebody, their coat comes open and they saw they had a weapon and they have it posted, that's in violation of their... But is the library a privately owned business? I think it's a public entity, so
They can carry in there.
Just a question, I'm always uncomfortable when I see someone walking around with a gun on their hip. For the same reason, what kind of training have you had, you know?
How's the 8 to 4 thing going, okay? No ramifications?
Yep.
Good, okay. I just wanted to throw out too, to you guys, you probably know this, but you may not, that the 3 commissioners are setting in on a county needs assessment committee. We've met twice now. We have a core committee, and then we have a citizens committee in conjunction with that. So altogether about 20 people. I think it's early on, but I think the general idea is for that committee to look at where we're at and try to give some direction to the county about where we need to go for all of our needs, but primarily looking at housing, our county offices, our sheriff's office, search and rescue, the courts. Certainly that the courts are a little different because they can be funded differently than the rest of those entities, but we are meeting and trying to get the wheels up and running on that. So gentlemen, jump in if you have comments, but I just wanted you to know that as a staff that we're looking. We think that's a need. I don't think anybody would disagree with that we've got to do something. Obviously, we have issues. We just talked about one. ADA compliance is another one, and just generally space. So we're scheduled to meet again on the 26th, 7th of March. You'd be welcome to set in on those meetings if your schedule allows that. But
Can I bring up a new issue?
Sure.
Okay. I know that I would like some input if we can, if the county should or could, or if it would be beneficial to have a rover employee. I believe Ms. Marilyn Keffer was a rover before she fell into a full-time position. And my understanding the way rover works is kind of fill in, like if both you folks have to be out of the treasurer, that person could be there just to answer the phone and fill in if someone's out, and just a general person who's an employee of the county to kind of fill in. We've done it before, and I was just curious if that's something you feel we have any need to consider again.
I've got Leila set up to come into our office when we need her.
So you don't need it? Okay, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. I would guess the lower the number of people in the department, the more applicable it might be.
And
I
that's
would
where it
guess
comes
you
in,
could
too.
be covered by one of your other stuff, so.
Yeah, I personally have never used a rover because I've got enough to cover, but I think it's like you said, where there's just one or two. I don't know.
And then I have to just close.
Yeah. Which?
So you close your office if,
I put it
if
on
you're
the
out.
door.
Yeah, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if there was one available that may be beneficial to you, okay.
Somebody can answer the phone anyway, huh?
Yeah, and someone could, sometimes, like Elizabeth had jury duties, so I went down to that Whitmore meeting, and I just put a sign on the door. But this time of year, there doesn't seem to be a lot of angst about it. But in the summertime, it's nice just to have someone in the office handing out a permit, because that makes somebody feel like at least they didn't waste their time driving in.
If you run into that, holler, because you can use Trish.
Oh, thank you.
Because she's, I mean,
That'd be
she
great.
just
I
kind of does a little bit of
even
everything. And
probably asked around when I went down to Wetmore, because I was debating whether I should go or
Right.
not.
Okay,
Yeah.
just a thought.
Yeah.
That's why we have staff meetings. Now your problems are solved.
Yeah, we've done that. Virginia
Didn't realize
left,
I had a problem.
but we do that with the tax sale. Her and Susie so I send one of my employees down to help them with tax sale. So might be able to, if Trish can't do it, I might be able to.
I'd have Vernon do it, but he's intimidating.
That might be a good thing.
So what can we do to help you all?
My thought, even more than a rover, would be someone who was cross-trained. For
That's
instance,
the beauty of a rover, they do get cross-trained.
and for instance, in case there was some type of catastrophic accident with Jackie or Donna or someone that could actually step into a role to fulfill those roles.
Oh, I
Just-
see what you mean. Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
And it used to be that where I worked before, they were cross-trained because just in case, because one person did the paychecks and couldn't show up when got stuck in the snowstorm, Iris did, and we didn't have paychecks. And it was amazing how many people needed that paycheck.
And just as a case in point, a rover, it would be a full-time employee housed in my office to be able to learn to do that. I can't, it's not something that somebody could just come in and hit a button and it happens.
No.
Because we need to move towards that at some point where someone is, where they're being able to sit there day after day and learn it. Because I'm aging as we speak.
And I would think that in Donna's office, you would want someone that would sit there permanently because of all the confidential stuff. You really don't want a rover roving around, do you? Like me.
Telling all the secrets.
Yeah, but I think Vern's point is excellent that, I mean, in these key positions, we may or may not have an adequate backup if, God forbid, you get run over by a Mack truck. God forbid. But I mean, it could happen. I mean, what are we going to do tomorrow if a key employee is unable to perform their duties anymore? I mean, we really ought to think about backup people and what
For
orderly
25 years,
transition.
they've been saying that same thing to me, and yet to have a person. So, I mean, it's how do we have a person who can be housed in cell 1 or something over there? I mean, that's where
You
we're
got a
at.
potty in there.
Yeah, I guess my question, and I'm certainly not opposed to looking at it, but would you say, are we big enough to justify another full-time employee to be a rover? If that's what it is, that's what it is. You can't say, well, no, it's Donna's assistant or it's Donna's person in training. Is it going to be a rover? And is the need going to arise often enough to justify a full-time position for that or even a part-time position? I don't know that, but that would be my question.
Well, and, once I retire, and Vernon's the only IT guy, you're gonna have a rover, backup IT. Huh? I mean, when I didn't have a backup.
Right.
12 years. And it is difficult. It is difficult because, when you're on vacation, you're not on vacation. Or when you're sick, you're not sick.
Right.
Because you still have to answer the phone or something and maybe talk them through it or.
Case in
whatever.
point, Saturday night.
Friday night.
Friday night, excuse me.
Yeah, Friday night, yeah. We had issue with the sheriff's office. We had to come in and get them up and going again.
But I don't think a rover would
I think a
settle.
rover is a great idea, except is this person, going to learn all the zoning regulations and how to issue a license plate and how to collect taxes and how to fix a computer and how to do the payroll and clean the bath, clean the
I would guess
hallways.
it'd be
I think
answer
that
the
was the
phone.
problem we had with the rover before, wasn't it?
Well, Maryland just stayed in the.
That's what I'm saying, they just
the two offices.
just two offices doing very specific duties, because trying to learn it all, and then you aren't in that office for 2 months and you're going, oh, I don't
And
remember.
things change.
That was the problem we ran into.
I'm just concerned about the one-person office,
Yeah.
like this hobby.
Mel and Vernon, yeah.
This hobby decides to walk out for whatever reason. Who's gonna take
Then be nicer to me.
I think
I'd go for that.
I think the rover thing that we're talking about, or at least I hear, is like answering the telephone, almost like a temporary agency person. We need you to come in today or Monday, so-and-so's not gonna be here. Can you come in and sit on the phones and avoid having to lock the door totally? They may still come to Jackie's office and not get what they wanted, but there would be a person there to say, I'm sorry, Jackie's in a commissioner meeting or whatever.
Take a message.
And she'll
Right.
be back with you. when
Yeah,
she-
rather than just shaking their head.
And Kelly had offered up Trish, and Trish is only a part-time person. So that would give Trish more hours. Now, if I borrowed Trish, would her wages come out of your, or we'd figure out where the wages would come from.
Yeah, probably out of mine because that's where they're,
That's where she works.
that's where they're,
And I can
Budgeted
actually, as
to,
long
and-
as it's a general fund, I could pull it, I could
Can
do a
always
general
transfer
ledger
bucks.
and do it right in there and pay her with one check out of hers for a partial.
That'd be nice.
You know, which,
But I want to know who we're sending to the dump.
My question, I figured Jackie would be the first one to
I
raise
know.
her hand.
She'd fit right in.
I have no problem board out there. I'd like to cross-train out there for a week.
right,
I
well,
don't think you have enough land for.
take your vacation, take your vacation time and get yourself cross-trained, would you please? Anything else, you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. If we need to fine tune the process of this, just keep hammering away on the staff meeting, how that should look or how you want it to look.
I had one more question. On the agenda, it says something about the personnel policy.
Yes,
And what was that about?
Kelly brought that to the Board of Commissioners today. That was tabled. We did not make a decision on accepting that that personnel policy. So she did bring all of your changes that you'd submitted to her and brought those to the commissioners. So we will look at that at a subsequent meeting. Yeah, and then I guess again on the salary policy or salary schedules, you guys working okay with that? You're pounding out something? And are you gonna submit that to the queen over here, or what's your plans there?
we're gonna meet again on the 28th or the last week of March.
Okay, so you'll bring those then to that meeting? Or do you want them ahead of time or not? That's fine for
No,
them to bring that.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I missed that meeting, but it was my understanding that I don't have to have a salary schedule that matches anybody else's.
No, that was a general discussion, correct me if I speak out of turn, that we are so varied and by department to department. That's where we decided to start with. Every department bring a salary schedule. At least that's a starting point. It may vary as the process goes along, but that's where we agreed
And
that we
I
would
shouldn't
start.
say this because I'll probably get a ton of people wanting it. I have an old workforce study, I don't know why the rest of you don't, that was done by the state.
You didn't have to ask.
And it shows, well, it shows they did a survey among all the counties and put a whole thing together, and it shows like deputy assessors in a county this size typically make this. Deputy clerks make this, cartographers make this, zoning employees make this. I mean, and that's what I based my salary schedule on was
Good.
that, and I've got that. I don't know why anybody else doesn't because it's put out by the state.
County did that.
Yeah,
But-
I use the CTSI salary
Blanket email?
survey
Yeah.
for what, that's where we've.
Yeah, I used the state workforce that the state put out, but they surveyed every county or whatever. and-
Well, and ours go they go by county revenues, and so.
Yeah,
that
that's
way
what,
you
that's
know
what, that's what mine does too, because my
Yeah.
county
So-
revenues. And it shows counties of this size, here's what these employees, man, it breaks it down.
That's what
into
I
all
got
kinds
a
of stuff.
copy from, because Donna had said that she had that, but there was some that I couldn't fit in anywhere,
Yeah, I don't know.
you know, and stuff, so.
And I would bring those to that committee and have that discussion as a group and say, how would we handle this? What
But-
do you recommend?
But let's say that I figured that one job is harder than another job and stuff. So just because I think that, and I'm just gonna say that Susan works in my office. Susan's job is harder than Linda's. And so I base that on the starting pay also. But you can't, we're doing apples and oranges. Because some people are exempt, some are non-exempt, some people have to meet with the public, some people get overtime, some people don't. So that's where the apples and the oranges on the salary schedule would fit in, right?
And so we probably do need an exempt, non-exempt category. I hadn't really thought about that. We talked about it, but we never really said anything. So
I think you have to.
it's in the personnel policy, but it's not tied to salaries.
Yeah.
It's defined in there, yeah. But yeah, I mean if that weren't the case, everybody get paid exactly the same. So that's why I think it needs to be department to department. JD's going to be different than yours, and who knows that better than you guys as department heads, just to say, this is my opinion as a department head, what we should be paying in my department, exempt or non-exempt. Put a category in there of each if you need to, yeah. Is that reasonable, or?
Yep, I think so.
And then who's gonna decide? Like, let's just say that I got Linda making $20 an hour, but somebody else has another person that they figure is basically doing the same work and they're getting $10 an hour.
Okay. I would think that would start in the committee. You guys, wherever those two, you could say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What are you thinking? Well, I'm thinking $10 an hour instead of 20 because of this. You work that out. Eventually, that whole thing's going to come to the Board of County Commissioners. But that's after you have worked it and massaged it and got it to your satisfaction.
And that came up in there, and that was the reason why we wanted everybody to come together with their plans so that you don't have somebody way over here and somebody way down here, because we don't want that either, because that's going to create turmoil. I mean, there's going to be differences, but we don't want huge differences.
Okay, but still in the same sense, right now I have 2 wage scales that I'm proposing. And I'll show you when we get to that meeting, I'll show you the difference. And they're both just how you would plug somebody in. Because if somebody comes in and they've been working as a secretary and they start out at $15 an hour, but they've been working for a secretary at some, I'm just gonna say Martin and Tope, then I want to be able to go down step 3 and plug them in and say, you know what? You said you've been at Martin and Tope 5 years. I'm going to give you 3 years experience, and you're going to start over here.
And you can do that.
Absolutely. You should do that.
Yeah.
That there should be like levels in there.
Levels, but the last thing I heard, of course, I didn't come, was you wanted a beginning, an intermediate, and
Just a range.
I think you can go with whatever you, a range, and if within a range, if within that range you want levels, you can put levels or whatever.
Okay, good.
One thing that we, excuse me, historically tried to do, we haven't tried to do this for a while, but we used to get together, the elected officials, the department heads, and the courthouse, on raises and stuff, and tried to keep the salaries similar because we didn't want my deputy making twice what the union's deputy made and that kind of thing when they're doing similar work. And the other thing was, you didn't want, oh, I'm leaving that office even though I've been trained and working there 5 years to go to work for this office because I get paid more in that office.
Yeah, there you go.
We tried to keep it similar. Now, Debbie kind of messed all that up at one point, but we used to get together and do that.
Took over a mess.
And took over all that, and then we quit
Great
when
point.
she came in because she didn't want to do that. But we tried to do that because otherwise you get,
all over the map.
yeah, and like I said, you got somebody that's working for you for 10 years and all of a sudden they go to work for another department because I'm working less and I'm making a lot more money. So that's why it's important to do it as a group, I think, and try to keep the ranges at least similar.
Yeah, good. I'd never thought about that possibility of
Yeah.
jumping ships within the county
Yeah.
for wages.
And it's
That'd be
okay if
crazy.
it's a move up, you know, we've had people do that. They go become a deputy in another department, take on more responsibilities, fine, but for
Just to
lateral
do it,
moves,
yeah.
to get more money is kind of silly. It shouldn't be,
That's why it's called lateral.
yeah, exactly.
Good. Okay. Other things?
Is quarterly sufficient? Do we need to do more, or should we do it less, or how often should we meet?
I think quarterly's fine.
Quarterly's, yeah.
Good.
We've tried monthly and it's been tough.
It was
Well, and again, in a little, relatively small county government, you know,
Yeah, I think
We can address
99% of the
issues.
problems get worked out
Yeah.
before they ever get to
Yeah.
a staff meeting.
Yeah.
And we were doing them monthly, and it was like coming in, "No, we don't have anything,
Yeah.
we could just leave,
Okay,
so.
good. Okay, well, we're still in the BOCC meeting, so we're gonna move along unless you have something else. But if not, we'll adjourn the staff meeting. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that.
Good job.
We'll move on. I think our last agenda item is comments from the public, so certainly, yes, ma'am, you have been patient. Thank you.
That's okay, I don't mind listening to the staff meeting. Okay, I have 2 questions. First one, when you did the straw poll, I didn't vote yes or no because I didn't have all of my questions answered. And I actually am okay with saying, well, the county has to pay $20,000 a year as their share for this infrastructure project. I'm okay with that. So in that case, I would have voted yes. But I would have voted no unless I could get this question answered, and it's been partially answered, but not completely. So we've been told that we'll get paid. We do a little bit of work, you know, something, and then we get paid for it and do a little bit more and get paid for it. So we've got our $0 to $2 million stretch. And hopefully at the end of the $2 million, when we hit that, we've got 6 completed towers and the roads and the power and the generators
Right-of-ways.
and everything. The right-of-ways, everything is done and we're complete at the end of the $2 million.
Operational, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so my first question was, well, if we hit, you know, after several months and we've spent $100,000 and we've gotten reimbursed for the $100,000, then, you know, the next couple months and we hit $200,000 and we get reimbursed for that, and then we go, you know, this just isn't gonna work, we stop it, we're not liable to pay back any of that money that we've already spent. Okay, and I wish that had been clear to everybody, because that would make people go, okay, you know, if the county is really only going to be responsible for the maintenance and not anything else, then not such a big deal. But my big question on this, I know there's about a 25% holdback on it.
Margin in it.
Yeah. So if we hit the 2 million and we're working on the 6 towers and we probably need another $200,000 to finish them, who's going to pay that $200,000? Are we, you know, is the county?
I'll answer that. DOLA normally, once they've committed to a project, if there are reasonable overruns that were unforeseen, they fund it. And that came directly from Christy Doon. And I've also firsthand saw it down in Wetmore when we found additional issues with the building that hadn't been anticipated. And we said, we need more money to finish this. And they said, what's the issue? They realized it wasn't mismanagement. And they said, sure. So while I can't say, don't worry, they're going to cover it, they're not going to leave us out to dry. We're not going to stop the project $200,000 short of completing it because the 3 commissioners say, we're not funding this, and it just dies on the vine there. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Okay, I just want to make sure that
It's a great question. It's a great question. It's been asked before. And in fact, I went to Christy with that specific question when it came up. And that was kind of the answer. She says, we're not going to leave you hanging, you know, but don't go squandering our money. And so we're not going to pave the roads to the towers, is what she tried to say without saying those words, you know what I'm saying.
Let me add to that, because I am a program manager on both sides, from a government point of view and in industry. And there is an additional safeguard that we've got to get into the specifics of how we're going to manage this, because now we have the county, probably for one of the first times, it is going to be responsible for an actual program to be executed with money, our government money. And so throughout that year's time, we're going to have a process that will work, where we will be aware of overruns early enough to deal with them and to understand how that might be impacted in the future. So that we would be, I mean, it happens, but we would be really foolish if we came up on the last 2 weeks and now we need $200,000, and what are we going to do? And for sure, like we said earlier, we're not going to squander and dip into the general fund to get by, and then how are we going to borrow $200,000? That isn't, if we're responsible, and I'm going to propose that in a later meeting, but we're going to have a program manager running this from a government side, and I'm going to volunteer.
All right, my second question was, when Mr. Baker was here talking today about the fair board, I was totally confused and lost and whatever. But I am very interested in the fair board and the fairgrounds and how all of that runs. I've had experience before with dealing with fair boards and fairgrounds when I was in California. And here, the fair board's a public group. It's, it's a public board. And trying to find their policies, their bylaws, minutes to their meetings, notice of when the meetings are. I'm not finding it.
Okay.
And I know, again, where before I lived,
Where were they?
public documents, like even for the broadband proposal, the 6-tower proposal, that document, and we keep getting told it's this thick, and if we want to see it, come for a cup of coffee and we can see it. Those were always, also at the county library, so that anybody could go into the county library and take a look at these public documents. So, first I've got the issue with the Fair Board is I'd like to get involved with the Fair Board. I didn't sign up to be part of the Fair Board because I want to get more involved before I jump all the way in. And I'm coming to this dead end of I don't know where to find where.
Probably true with all the boards.
Probably with all the boards, but this is one that I'm
Or
interested
with
in.
some of them.
But could the county possibly put documents like this into the library?
That's where I was headed. Yeah, let me give you Diane Rose is the president of the Fair Board. I believe they call her the president, not the chairman. Her email address is D, as in Diane, KROSE @AOL.com. I believe it would be reasonable for you to email her and ask her, can you be included on their agenda mailing or whatever? Would it be reasonable to say, let's put a link on our county website that they could post those?
I could definitely do that. There are numerous places where we post minutes from different meetings, from the airport board, the planning and zoning, the BOCC, of course, and we do keep those updated. They have to come to me. I can't chase them down.
Okay.
So if they can get them to me, I can create a link there and put them on the website and make them publicly available.
And you say you currently have a place that those minutes and stuff are posted?
Planning and zoning.
Oh, okay, within the individual departments?
Yeah, within the individual departments.
Got you.
Yeah.
I'd like to recommend, if in that light, if that's the case, Brenda ought to put a note out to everybody that has an input, and to give them your address and that you need them after their meetings.
That would work.
Yeah, I just went to Extension website, which is where I would normally expect to find eventually the minutes of a Fair Board meeting.
The
I
extension?
thought there was a link. Is there not a link on that extension?
On Extension?
Yeah.
Well, if you go to the extension page on the Custer County website, it goes to the CSU extension homepage.
Right.
And from there, you can click on 4-H. And then there's the 4-H newsletter from Custer County.
We need a better link.
They do send me that newsletter whenever they post it, and I put that out there.
Yeah, and where though? That's my question. Where?
At that point in the web, I'd have to look at the map.
Okay.
It's quite complicated, but I don't have anything to do with the extension office themselves,
Right.
because that's CSU. But when the 4-H gives me a newsletter, I do post it out publicly on our webpage. So
I
I'd
don't
have to
see anything
exactly
about
where it is.
Fair Board.
No, I don't either, and that would be my frustration.
I haven't seen
You
it.
go in a big circle.
Yeah, I mean, the minute
Right,
you get into
exactly.
CSU's thing, you're screwed.
That's why we need to have you set up
It's
aside.
so
You get them
convoluted.
and you post them.
That's right, exactly.
So what I'm wondering is if it's not already tourism, you should be able to go there and find a set of their minutes. Planning, no, let me pick another one that would typically keep minutes. Veterans Service, noxious weeds. We should be able to click on there. If they're not there, I'm saying, should we have
I think you
another
ought to have
Fair
a site
Board,
that says board
advisory
meeting
board?
minutes, all boards. It's easier to go to.
You're entitled to those documents. So if someone ever says to you, we don't give that out to the public, please come see us,
Yeah.
okay? You are entitled to any of
Just
them.
ought to have board
I
Yeah.
would contact her, but it would be nice
They'd be
to
chasing
have them
all
on the
over.
county's
I
website,
concur
since these
with
are
you.
county boards and
Right.
commissions.
Yeah, and Bill is offering a suggestion that maybe on our left-hand side of that menu, we have boards minutes, click on there, pick your board, click on it, there's your minutes, there's your agenda,
in a
or
place you
whatever.
can get to, you don't have to chase
I
around the
guarantee you,
website.
I'd be on the fight trying to find this, going through CS.
Keep 'em off the
deal, 'cause
websites.
It's a mess, yeah.
I see, okay,
Something to consider.
all right.
I think it would be reasonable. I mean, it's nice to go to county commissioners. There's a whole thing of minutes, auto recordings, you know, so I don't know how many other boards we would have. Certainly the fair board,
It would be nice to have the bylaws on there too.
yeah, any
Because people ask for
documents.
the bylaws
Mhm.
all the time.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
And
I'll have it all.
Really ought to be.
I'll certainly bring that to
One
the fair
place,
board when they have
shop
the next
right
meeting,
there.
but
A one-stop shop?
Right, and don't get it, because they go into those other links, they gotta find on their homepage what they got, and then they chase it around, they give up.
And some of those links link out to.
Right.
Right, and then they go in, and then they come back, and you go, what happened?
yeah, good, okay.
It's your job.
Right. Any other comments from the public? You are not the public, so you keep your comments to yourself back there. Because I know what you're saying. We're 15 minutes behind schedule,
I wanna
not
go
the
to
end of
the
the world.
dump.
But other comments? Public? Hearing none? Chair will entertain a motion.
I
to
move we adjourning.
Is there a second?
Go.
I'll second it. Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
All right, we can go to the fire, and
Aye.
they're going out to your place. Right?
Meeting adjourned. And actually.